Hello, beautiful people. You've just landed on Beyond Hogwarts. Today's featured story is, What If Scarlet, which rescued Harry at age 5 and chaos magic merged with wizardry made reality itself obey. If you're new here, welcome to the family. Hit subscribe and the notification bell. And if you're returning, you know the drill, like and share. Enough talk, let's get into the story. Chapter 1, The Scarlet Rescue. The crimson tendrils of energy dissipated from Wanda Maximoff's fingertips as she lowered her hands. She stood at the edge of a nondescript park in Little Whinging, Surrey, her breath creating small clouds in the chilly November air. Something had called to her, something magical, raw, and untamed. It wasn't the first time she had sensed magical anomalies across dimensions, but this felt different. This was a desperate cry that had sliced through her consciousness like a knife. Strange, indeed, she murmured to herself, pulling her scarlet leather jacket closer against the cold. The suburban neighborhood sprawled before her, row after row of identical houses with their identical gardens and identical lives. But somewhere in this sea of mundane existence flickered a magical signature that had no right to be here, one that resonated strangely with her own chaos magic. Wanda had been traveling between dimensions since the tragedy that had claimed Vision, seeking understanding of her powers and perhaps some semblance of peace. This quiet corner of England had not been on her itinerary, but the magical disturbance had pulled her from her intended path with startling force. Her green eyes scanned the surroundings as she walked down Magnolia Road, following the invisible trail only she could perceive. The magic grew stronger as she approached Privet Drive, pulsing with what felt almost like fear. Whatever, or whoever, was generating this energy was in distress. Number 4, Privet Drive looked exactly like its neighbors, pristine lawn, polished car in the driveway, curtains drawn against the evening darkness. But to Wanda, it glowed like a beacon in her magical senses. "This is it," she whispered. "But what are you?" As she approached the house, the signature clarified itself. Not a what, but a who. A person, a child, with magic unlike anything she had encountered before. Different from her chaos magic, different from the sorcery practiced by Dr. Strange and his ilk. This was something else entirely, and it was confined within these walls, churning with unconscious power and unmistakable pain. Wanda walked up to the door and paused. Direct confrontation wasn't always wise. She closed her eyes, extending her consciousness into the home, seeking to understand before acting. Inside, she sensed 4 individuals. 3 magical voids, completely mundane humans, and 1 small sun of magical potential. The contrast was jarring. The 3 non-magical presences exuded various negative emotions, frustration, fear, disgust. The magical presence was dim with resignation and hunger. The Scarlet Witch's jaw tightened. She knew what it was to be feared for being different. She knew what it was to be treated as less than human. Night had fallen completely now. Through the windows, she could see a large man, a thin woman, and a chubby child seated at a dinner table, eating heartily. There was no sign of the 4th presence. Wanda circled around to the back of the house, her scarlet energy curling around her fingers as she maintained her magical awareness. The 4th presence was, under the stairs. She frowned, moving closer to a small cupboard door built into the staircase. "What kind of people?" she whispered, anger rising. Rather than knocking or breaking down doors, Wanda did what she did best. Red energy crackled as she gently twisted reality, making herself unnoticeable to the family inside. She passed through the back door as if it were an illusion, her form slightly translucent as she manipulated perception around her. The sounds of dinner conversation and clinking silverware came from the dining room, but Wanda's attention was fixed on the small door under the stairs. A padlock secured it from the outside. Her fingers trembled slightly as she flicked them toward the lock. It clicked open silently, and she eased the door ajar. The smell hit her first, the unmistakable scent of unwashed child and soiled bedding. Then her eyes adjusted to the darkness, and she saw him. A small boy, no more than 5, lay curled on a thin mattress. His black hair was unkempt, his clothes several sizes too large. Even in sleep, his face was pinched with hunger and worry. A crude drawing of a birthday cake was scratched into the wall beside him, the candle, nothing more than a line in the dust. Most shocking of all was the scar, an angry, lightning-shaped mark on his forehead that throbbed with magical energy. It was from this scar that the distress signal had emanated, calling to her across dimensions. "Oh, child," Wanda breathed, her accent thickening with emotion. "What have they done to you?" The boy's eyes fluttered open at the sound of her voice, revealing startling green irises that reminded her of her own. He didn't scream or pull away. Instead, he simply stared at her, as if uncertain whether she was real or a dream. "Hello," he whispered, his voice hoarse from disuse. "Hello," Wanda replied softly, crouching to his level. "My name is Wanda. What's yours?" The boy hesitated, glancing toward the dining room nervously before answering. "Harry. Are you real?" The simple question broke something in Wanda's heart. "Yes, Harry. I'm real. And I can see that you're hurting here." Harry sat up slowly, his oversized shirt hanging off one bony shoulder. "Are you here to take me away?" he asked, a dangerous hope flickering in his eyes. Before Wanda could answer, a commotion from outside caught her attention. Her magical senses flared in warning. Several magical signatures were approaching the house, different from Harry's but unmistakably of the same type. "We have company," she murmured, her mind racing. Whatever these people were, they had detected either her presence or her interaction with the boy's magic. Harry's eyes widened in fear. "Uncle Vernon will be angry if there are more freaks," he whispered. Wanda's expression darkened at the word. "You are not a freak, Harry. Neither am I. We are special." She extended her hand. "And yes, I am here to take you away, if you want to come with me." For a moment, the boy looked torn, his 5-year-old mind struggling with the choice between the familiar, however horrible, and the unknown. A sharp knock came at the front door. From the dining room, the large man, Uncle Vernon, presumably, grumbled about visitors at dinner time. "They're here for you," Wanda said urgently. "I don't know who they are, but I can sense their intention. They want to take you back somewhere." "Back to where?" Harry asked, confused. "Not with me," Wanda replied simply. "The choice is yours, Harry. But I promise I will keep you safe." Small, tentative fingers reached out and took her hand. The moment they touched, a surge of energy passed between them, crimson chaos magic meeting and mingling with Harry's untapped potential. The cupboard illuminated briefly with the red-gold glow of their combined power. Wanda gasped. Never had her chaos magic found such perfect resonance with another's abilities. It was as though Harry's magic was the perfect complement to her own, order and chaos in beautiful harmony. The front door opened. A stern voice spoke, "Vernon Dursley, I am Professor McGonagall from Hogwarts School. Our instruments have detected unauthorized magical activity in your home concerning Harry Potter." Harry's grip on Wanda's hand tightened fearfully. "Now, Dursley," continued a deeper, male voice, "we know the boy is here. The protections have been tampered with. Stand aside." Vernon's outraged sputtering was cut short by what sounded like a magical command. Footsteps headed toward the cupboard. Wanda made her decision in an instant. "Hold tight to me, Harry," she whispered. "This might feel strange." As the cupboard door was wrenched open from outside, Wanda enveloped herself and Harry in a sphere of scarlet energy. The last thing they saw was the shocked face of an elderly woman in emerald robes before reality itself bent around them. The sensation of traveling via Wanda's chaos magic was unlike anything Harry had ever experienced, not that his 5 years had offered many experiences for comparison. It felt like being turned inside out while simultaneously being compressed from all sides. Colors streaked past his vision, not just red and gold, but blues and purples and hues he had no names for. When they rematerialized, they were standing in a forest clearing, moonlight filtering through ancient trees. Harry swayed on his feet, disoriented, and Wanda steadied him with a gentle hand. "Easy," she said. "The first time is always difficult." Harry looked around in wonder, then up at the woman who had rescued him. In the moonlight, he could see her clearly for the first time, auburn hair with a reddish glow, kind green eyes not unlike his own, and an air of both power and sadness that surrounded her like an aura. "How did you do that?" he asked, his fear momentarily forgotten in childish amazement. Wanda smiled. "Magic. Real magic, not tricks or illusions." She crouched to his level again. "You have it too, Harry. That's why I found you." Harry shook his head vehemently. "No, I don't. Uncle Vernon says magic isn't real. He says I'm just a freak when strange things happen." "Strange things?" Wanda prompted gently. Harry looked down at his oversized shoes. "Sometimes, when Dudley and his friends chase me, I end up on the school roof. And once when Aunt Petunia cut all my hair off, it grew back overnight." His voice dropped to a whisper. "That's when they put me in the cupboard for a week." Anger flashed in Wanda's eyes, crimson energy briefly sparking at her fingertips before she controlled it. "Those weren't accidents, Harry. That was your magic protecting you. Just like mine protects me." To demonstrate, she extended her hand, allowing tendrils of scarlet energy to dance between her fingers. With a flick of her wrist, she lifted a fallen log from the ground, suspending it midair before gently setting it back down. Harry's eyes grew round as saucers. Can I do that?" "Not exactly like that, no," Wanda replied honestly. "Your magic is different from mine. But just as special." She paused, considering how to explain complex magical theory to a 5-year-old. "My magic comes from something called chaos energy. It lets me change what's real. Your magic seems more structured. More about making things happen according to rules." Harry's face fell slightly. "So I can't do the red lights?" Wanda laughed softly. "Well, that's the interesting part. When we touched, our magic seemed to recognize each other. I've never felt anything like it." She extended her hand again. "May I?" Harry nodded, placing his small hand in hers. Once again, the crimson energy of her chaos magic flowed between them, but this time, Wanda concentrated on feeling the nature of Harry's magic. It was wild yet disciplined, ancient yet new. It felt like it belonged to a system, a tradition of some kind. And it was powerful, far more powerful than a child his age should possess. Something had happened to this boy, something that had marked him in more ways than just the scar on his forehead. As their magics mingled, gold threads began to appear within Wanda's red energy, twining around her crimson tendrils like vines seeking sunlight. "Oh my," she breathed. "Look, Harry." Harry stared at their joined hands, where red and gold energy danced together. "It's pretty," he said simply. Wanda nodded, her mind racing with implications. "It's more than pretty. It's unique. I think our magics might be compatible in ways I've never seen before." She gently withdrew her hand, and the light show faded. "But that's something to explore later. Right now, we need to keep moving. Those people will be looking for us." "Who were they?" Harry asked, suddenly remembering the stern-faced woman at the cupboard door. "I'm not sure," Wanda admitted. "They knew about magic, and they knew about you. They called a place Hogwarts." She frowned, trying to recall everything she'd heard in those brief moments. "They seem to think you belong with them, or at least under their protection." "I don't want to go back to the Dursleys," Harry said firmly, a flash of determination crossing his young face. "And you won't," Wanda promised. "But we can't stay here either. This is too close to where we left." She looked around the clearing, getting her bearings. "I know a place we can go, at least temporarily. It's far from here, across an ocean in fact. Harry's eyes widened. Across the ocean? Like America? Wanda nodded. Exactly like America. I have a friend there who might be able to help us understand your magic better. She didn't mention that this friend might be reluctant to see her after their last encounter. Some things were too complicated for a child to understand. But before we go, she added, looking at Harry's ragged clothes and thin frame, we need to take care of you. When was the last time you ate, little one? Harry's stomach growled in response. Yesterday morning, he admitted. I didn't finish my chores fast enough for dinner. Something dangerous flashed in Wanda's eyes, and for a moment, the trees around them seemed to bend slightly inward, responding to her anger. She took a deep breath, centering herself. Well, that won't do at all. With a wave of her hand, she conjured a simple meal, bread, cheese, and an apple, from the nearby town, her chaos magic bending reality just enough to relocate the food without anyone noticing its disappearance. Harry stared at the food, then back at Wanda. Is it really for me? All of it, she confirmed, her heart breaking a little at his disbelief. Eat slowly, though. Your stomach needs to adjust. As Harry ate with careful, measured bites, clearly savoring each one, Wanda extended her magical awareness outward, scanning for pursuers. She detected faint traces of magical activity several miles away, moving in search patterns. They were looking for Harry, and they had methods she didn't fully understand. When Harry had finished eating, Wanda helped him clean his face and hands with a conjured handkerchief. Ready for another trip? She asked. This one will be longer. Harry nodded, standing straighter than before, the food having restored some of his energy and confidence. Where are we going? New York, Wanda replied. To see a doctor. Not the kind that gives shots, she added quickly, seeing his apprehension. A doctor of magic. Harry considered this, then asked the question that had clearly been on his mind. Are you going to be my new mum? The innocent question caught Wanda off guard. Her mind flashed to her own lost children, constructs of her reality-altering power, but no less real to her heart. She had never considered herself mother material after that trauma, yet here was this child, looking up at her with hope in his eyes. She began, unsure how to respond. It's okay if you don't want to be, Harry said quickly, mistaking her hesitation for rejection. I know I'm not very good. No, Harry, that's not it at all, Wanda said firmly, kneeling to look him in the eyes. You are wonderful. Any mother would be lucky to have you. She brushed a strand of hair from his forehead, carefully avoiding the scar. I don't know what I can be for you yet. But I promise I will keep you safe, help you learn about your magic, and never, ever lock you in a cupboard. Harry considered this seriously, then nodded. That sounds better than having the Dursleys. Wanda laughed despite herself. A low bar, indeed. Now, take my hand. This jump will require more concentration. As Harry gripped her hand tightly, Wanda gathered her chaos magic, visualizing their destination, the Sanctum Sanctorum in Greenwich Village. She had visited once before, though the circumstances had been less than friendly. Whether Doctor Strange would welcome her now remained to be seen, but she needed answers about Harry's magic, and Strange was the only sorcerer she knew who might have them. The crimson sphere enveloped them again, but this time, gold threads immediately appeared within it, Harry's magic responding instinctively to hers. The transition felt smoother, more controlled, as their magics worked in tandem. In the moment before reality bent around them, Wanda felt a strange certainty. This child had come into her life for a reason, and their meeting would change both their destinies forever. The sensation of international magical travel was significantly more intense than their previous short jump. Harry clung to Wanda's hand with surprising strength, his eyes squeezed shut as their combined magics tore through the fabric of space. When they materialized on a quiet street in Greenwich Village, Harry stumbled, and Wanda caught him before he could fall. The early evening in England had translated to midday in New York, and the sudden brightness made them both blink. Are you all right? Wanda asked, steadying the boy. Harry nodded, though his face was pale. That was longer, he managed, his voice slightly shaky. Yes, and you did very well, Wanda praised. Many grown-ups would have been sick after such a journey. Harry stood straighter at the compliment, clearly unused to positive reinforcement. The simple response to praise made Wanda's determination to protect him grow even stronger. Before them stood the Sanctum Sanctorum, though to ordinary passers-by, it appeared as nothing more than an old brownstone with peculiar circular windows. To Wanda's magical senses, however, it thrummed with ancient protective spells and dimensional anchors. This is a magic house, Harry observed with surprising perception. Wanda glanced down at him, impressed. Yes, it is. You can feel that? Harry nodded. It's humming. Like you, but different. He frowned, trying to articulate what his nascent magical senses were telling him. Yours is warm and red. This is green and gold and lots of shapes. Wanda filed this information away for later consideration. The boy's magical sensitivity was remarkable, especially for one so young and untrained. The person who lives here is called Dr. Strange, she explained as they approached the front steps. He's a sorcerer, another kind of magic user. He might be able to tell us more about your particular magic. Is he nice? Harry asked with the direct practicality of a child. Wanda hesitated. He's complicated. But he protects people, in his way. She didn't add that her last interaction with Strange had involved threatening him during a moment of personal crisis. Some introductions were better made without prejudice. As they reached the door, it swung open before Wanda could knock. Instead of Strange, however, they were greeted by a middle-aged Asian man in simple robes. Wong, Wanda acknowledged, relieved it wasn't Strange himself. Wong had always been more even-tempered. Maximoff, Wong replied, his expression betraying only mild surprise. His eyes moved to Harry. And a guest. Interesting. He stepped aside. You'd better come in before you attract attention. There are certain magical communities quite agitated about a disappearance in England today. Wanda's eyes narrowed. News travels fast. Through the right channels, Wong agreed, closing the door behind them. The Sorcerer Supreme is not here at present, but he's been notified of your arrival. The interior of the sanctum was as Harry had sensed, filled with magical artifacts and thrumming with ancient spells. Display cases contained objects of various origins and powers, while staircases seemed to lead to impossible geometries. Harry stayed close to Wanda, overwhelmed by the magical atmosphere but too curious to hide. His eyes darted from one strange object to another, his hand never leaving Wanda's. Who is the child? Wong asked directly, leading them to a study area with comfortable chairs and books lining every wall. His name is Harry Potter, Wanda replied. I found him being mistreated by his relatives. He has powerful magic, different from mine or yours, and his distress called to me across dimensions. Wong's eyebrows rose at the name. Potter? He studied the boy more carefully, his gaze lingering on the lightning scar. I see. That explains the disturbance in the international wizarding channels. Wizarding? Wanda repeated. You know of his type of magic? Not intimately, Wong admitted. The mystical arts we practice are distinct from wand-wielding wizardry. They operate on different fundamental principles, though both tap into dimensional energies in their way. He addressed Harry directly. You are quite famous in your world, young man. Harry blinked in confusion. Me? But I'm just Harry. Wong's expression softened slightly. Perhaps to yourself. To others, you are known as the boy who lived. The boy who? Wanda began, but was interrupted by the sudden appearance of a sparking golden portal in the middle of the room. Through it stepped Dr. Stephen Strange, his cloak of levitation billowing dramatically around his tall frame. His expression was guarded as his eyes found Wanda. Maximoff, he greeted, echoing Wong's earlier acknowledgement. This is unexpected. Strange, Wanda returned evenly. I need your help. Strange's gaze shifted to Harry, who was staring open-mouthed at the sorcerer's dramatic entrance. So I see. Wong has briefed me on the situation. He approached slowly, crouching to Harry's level with surprising gentleness. Hello, Harry Potter. I'm Dr. Strange. You came through a circle of light, Harry observed, his childish directness cutting through formality. Strange's lips quirked. Yes. It's called a sling ring portal. It allows me to travel between locations instantly. Wanda does it with red magic, Harry informed him seriously. So I've seen, Strange replied, glancing up at Wanda. To her, he said, do you understand what you've done by taking him? The wizarding world has protections and systems in place for their children. You've likely violated several of their laws. I found him locked in a cupboard, Wanda said flatly. Starving and neglected by the people who were supposed to protect him. Whatever systems they had in place clearly failed him. Strange's expression darkened. That doesn't align with what I know of Albus Dumbledore's character. He placed the boy with those relatives for his protection. You know this Dumbledore? Wanda asked, surprised. We've met, Strange confirmed. The wizarding world and the mystical practitioners rarely intersect, but sometimes cooperation is necessary. Dumbledore is, or was, the last I knew, the most powerful wizard of their kind, and the headmaster of their school, Hogwarts. The people looking for Harry mentioned that name, Wanda recalled. Hogwarts. Strange nodded. It's a school for witches and wizards. Harry would have been expected to attend when he turned 11. He stood, addressing Wanda directly. What do you intend to do with him? Protect him, Wanda said simply. Teach him to control his abilities. Give him the childhood he deserves. Noble intentions, Strange acknowledged. But there are complications you may not be aware of. He glanced at Harry, who was now examining a hovering artifact in a nearby display case, though still within earshot. Wong, perhaps you could show young Mr. Potter the library. I believe we have some illustrated texts on basic magical theory that might interest him. Wong nodded, understanding the request for privacy. Would you like to see some magical books, Harry? He asked, his normally stern demeanor softening slightly. Harry looked to Wanda for permission. When she nodded encouragingly, he followed Wong from the room, though not without a backward glance of concern. Once they were alone, Strange turned to Wanda. The boy is not just any wizard child, Maximoff. He is possibly the most significant magical child of this generation in their world. Because he's this boy who lived? Wanda asked. What does that even mean? Strange sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. My knowledge of wizarding affairs is limited, but I know this much, about 4 years ago, their world was at war. A dark wizard, Voldemort, though many refused to say the name, was seeking to dominate their society. He murdered hundreds, including Harry's parents. Wanda's expression softened with understanding. He's an orphan. Yes. But here's what makes him unique, Voldemort tried to kill Harry too, with a curse that had never failed to kill instantly. Yet somehow, it rebounded. Voldemort was destroyed, or at least severely diminished, and Harry survived with only that scar. The scar, Wanda murmured, recalling how it had throbbed with strange energy. It doesn't feel like a normal injury. It has its own magical signature. Strange nodded. I'm not surprised. Being struck by their killing curse and surviving is unprecedented. The boy became an instant legend, a symbol of hope and victory. Dumbledore placed him with his mother's sister for his protection, using blood magic to create wards that would keep him safe from Voldemort's remaining followers. Safe from external threats, perhaps, Wanda said bitterly. But not from the protection itself. They kept him in a cupboard, Strange. Starved him. Called him a freak for his accidental magic. Strange's expression darkened again. That was not part of Dumbledore's plan, I'm certain. Nevertheless, removing him from those wards has likely exposed him to new dangers. I can protect him, Wanda insisted. My chaos magic is powerful but unpredictable, Strange interrupted. And now there's another factor. He studied her intently. Wong tells me you reported some kind of resonance between your chaos magic and the boy's wizarding abilities. Wanda nodded. When we touched, our magic seemed to recognize each other. His blended with mine, gold threads within my red energy. It made my magic more stable, more controlled. Strange's eyebrows rose. That should be impossible. Chaos magic and wizarding magic operate on entirely different principles. See for yourself, Wanda suggested, extending her hand. Red energy danced across her fingertips. Call him back in. Strange hesitated, then called out, Wong. You can bring Harry back now. A moment later, Wong returned with Harry, who was carrying a large illustrated book almost too heavy for his small arms. Mr. Wong showed me pictures of dragons. Harry announced excitedly. Real ones. Indeed, Strange replied with an amused smile. Harry, would you mind showing me what happens when you and Wanda use magic together? Harry looked to Wanda, who nodded encouragingly and extended her hand to him. Without hesitation, he placed his small hand in hers. The effect was immediate. Crimson energy flowed from Wanda, enveloping their joined hands, but within seconds, golden threads appeared, weaving through the red in complex patterns. The combined energy was more stable, more directed than Wanda's chaos magic alone, yet more fluid and adaptive than standard wizarding magic. Strange's eyes widened in genuine surprise. Extraordinary, he murmured. It's as if his structured magical system is providing a framework for your chaos energy to express itself more precisely. And my chaos magic seems to amplify his abilities, Wanda added. When we transported here, the journey was smoother than when I travel alone. Strange circled them slowly, studying the phenomenon from all angles. This could have profound implications, he said, more to himself than to them. The wizarding world has always been separate from other magical traditions, partly due to incompatibility of techniques. But this suggests a bridge might be possible. Harry, meanwhile, was fascinated by the swirling energies around his hand. On impulse, he reached out his free hand toward a pencil on a nearby desk. To everyone's surprise, the pencil rose smoothly into the air, a feat of wandless magic far beyond what a 5-year-old wizard should be capable of. I did it! Harry exclaimed, his face lighting up with pure joy. The pencil spun in midair, then gently floated back to the desk. As Harry's concentration broke, the golden threads faded from Wanda's crimson energy, though they didn't disappear entirely. Remarkable control, Wong commented. Most wizarding children his age would have sent that pencil flying through a window. Strange nodded thoughtfully. The chaos magic is allowing him to bypass the normal restrictions of wizarding technique. No wand, no incantation, just pure will and intent, channeled through Wanda's reality-altering abilities. What does this mean for him? Wanda asked, concern mixing with pride as she watched Harry's delighted expression. It means, Strange said slowly, that we have a unique situation on our hands. The boy has the potential to develop abilities that neither wizarding nor chaos magic practitioners have achieved alone. He paused. It also means that both worlds will want to claim him. The wizarding authorities for their prophesied savior, and various mystical entities for his unprecedented abilities. Prophesied? Wanda asked sharply. Strange sighed. Dumbledore hinted at a prophecy concerning Harry and Voldemort. He didn't share details, but it was significant enough that both sides of their war sought control of the boy. Harry had wandered back to the bookshelves, apparently losing interest in the adult conversation now that the magical demonstration was over. His childish attention span was a reminder of just how young he was to bear such burdens. What do you suggest? Wanda asked, her voice lowered. Strange considered for a long moment. I believe we should contact Dumbledore, he said finally. Not to return Harry, he added quickly, seeing Wanda's expression harden, but to explain the situation. Leaving the wizarding authorities in the dark will only escalate tensions. And if they demand his return? Wanda challenged. Then we negotiate, Strange replied simply. The boy's welfare must come first, but burning bridges with the wizarding world won't serve him in the long run. He has a heritage there that deserves to be honored alongside whatever new path this magical fusion creates. Wanda watched Harry as he carefully turned the pages of the dragon book, his face alight with wonder. I won't let them put him back in that cupboard, she said firmly. On that, we are in complete agreement, Strange assured her. The question is where he should stay in the meantime. The sanctum is not ideal for a child, and your living situations have been somewhat unstable since Westview. Wanda winced at the reference to her darkest moment, creating an entire false reality to house her illusory family. I've been better, she said defensively. I've been working with control techniques from Camartage. I'm aware, Strange acknowledged. And your handling of the magical fusion with Harry suggests significant progress. He paused. There is a property upstate, a safe house of sorts that the masters of the mystic arts maintain. It has extensive magical protections while appearing completely mundane from the outside. It might serve as a temporary residence while we sort this out. Wanda questioned. Strange's lips quirked in a small smile. Like it or not, Maximoff, you've drawn me into this situation by bringing him here. The intersection of chaos magic, wizardry, and a prophesied child is precisely the sort of mystical complication that falls under my purview as Sorcerer Supreme. From across the room, Harry called out, Wanda. This book says dragons can breathe fire. Is that true? Yes, little one, she replied with a soft smile. Though I think we should hold off on meeting any for a while. Harry nodded seriously. Until I'm 6, at least. The innocent response drew unexpected chuckles from both sorcerers, breaking the tension of their serious discussion. I'll make arrangements for the safe house, Strange said. Wong can help gather necessities for the boy, clothes, food, educational materials. Thank you, Wanda said, genuine gratitude in her voice. I didn't expect such accommodation. We've had our differences, Strange acknowledged. But the welfare of a child transcends that. Besides, he added with a wry smile, keeping an eye on this unprecedented magical development is simply good mystical stewardship. As Strange moved away to make the necessary preparations, Wanda approached Harry, who had become completely absorbed in his book again. How are you feeling? She asked gently, sitting beside him. Harry looked up, his green eyes bright. Good. Better than at the Dursleys. He hesitated, then added in a small voice, Are we really going to stay somewhere safe? With no cupboard? Absolutely no cupboards, Wanda promised. You'll have a real bedroom with a real bed. And I'll be right there with you. Harry's face lit up with hope so pure it made Wanda's heart ache. And I can learn magic? Real magic? Yes, she confirmed. It seems you have a very special kind of magic, Harry. Different from mine, different from Dr. Strange's. We'll learn about it together. And the dragons? He asked hopefully. Wanda laughed softly. We'll see about the dragons. One step at time. As Strange returned with information about the safe house, Wanda felt something she hadn't experienced in a long time, a sense of purpose untainted by grief or vengeance. In this small, messy-haired boy with his lightning scar and untapped potential, she saw not just a child to protect, but a chance to heal her own wounded heart. The safe house turned out to be a charming farmhouse on several acres of land in upstate New York. To ordinary observers, it appeared as nothing more than a well-maintained but unremarkable property. To magical senses, however, it hummed with protective enchantments, some from strange mystical traditions, others that Wong had adapted from what he knew of wizarding wards. The interior was spacious and comfortable, with a large kitchen, a cozy living room with a fireplace, and 3 bedrooms upstairs. Strange had arranged for it to be fully stocked with everything they might need, from groceries to children's clothing in Harry's size. Harry explored the house with growing excitement, his earlier exhaustion forgotten as he discovered each new room. When Wanda showed him to his bedroom, a cheerful space with a real bed, a desk, and shelves already filled with both magical and Muggle children's books, his eyes had filled with tears. "All of this is for me?" he had asked in disbelief. "All of it," Wanda had confirmed, her own eyes misting at his reaction to such basic dignities. Now, as evening fell, Wanda stood on the back porch, watching as Harry explored the large backyard. Strange had returned to the sanctum to contact Dumbledore, promising to return the following day with news. Wong had stayed behind temporarily to help strengthen the property's protections and to begin assessing Harry's magical capabilities. "The boy has extraordinary potential," Wong said, joining Wanda on the porch. "Even without the amplification effect of your chaos magic." Wanda nodded. "I sensed it immediately. It's why I could feel his distress from so far away. Have you considered what this means for you?" Wong asked, his tone neutral but his question pointed. Wanda glanced at him. "What do you mean?" "Taking responsibility for a child is no small thing," Wong replied. "Especially one with his significance and abilities. It will change your path." "My path has never been clear," Wanda said softly. "Perhaps this is the direction I've been seeking." Wong studied her for a moment. "Perhaps. But it will not be easy. The wizarding world will not simply relinquish their claim on him, regardless of how the Dursleys treated him." "Let them try to take him," Wanda said, a flash of protective anger making her eyes briefly glow red. "That attitude will not serve either of you," Wong cautioned. "The boy needs stability, not a war between magical factions." He paused. "There may be a middle path, one where he can learn from both traditions." Wanda watched as Harry crouched to examine a garden snail with intense fascination. "I just want him to be happy. To be a child before he has to be a hero or a savior or whatever destiny they've planned for him." "A worthy goal," Wong agreed. "And one more likely to succeed if you work with, rather than against, those who also have his interests at heart." "Do they?" Wanda challenged. "They left him with people who abused him. Who locked a 5-year-old in a cupboard." Wong's expression remained impassive. "I cannot speak to Dumbledore's reasoning. I only know that in my experience, he is not a man who acts without purpose. There may be factors you are not aware of." "No purpose justifies a child's suffering," Wanda said firmly. "On that, we agree," Wong replied. "Which is why I believe a dialogue is necessary. To ensure all factors are known and considered in determining what happens next." Their conversation was interrupted by Harry's excited call. "Wanda! Look!" He was pointing to a small garden snake that had emerged from beneath a rock. To both adults' surprise, Harry seemed to be hissing at it, and more surprisingly, the snake appeared to be responding. Wong's eyebrows shot up. "Parseltongue," he murmured. "Most unusual. What is it?" Wanda asked, watching as Harry continued his apparent conversation with the snake. "The ability to speak to serpents," Wong explained. "It's extremely rare among wizards, and often associated with darker practitioners." He frowned. "Though that prejudice is more cultural than factual. In many magical traditions, serpent speakers are revered as wise intermediaries with the natural world." Wanda moved closer to Harry, who looked up with delight. "Wanda! This snake says his name is Slither, and he lives under the big rock. He thinks I'm strange but interesting. Does he now?" Wanda replied, hiding her surprise behind a smile. "That's very polite of him." "You didn't tell me you could speak to snakes, Harry," Wong said carefully, approaching slowly to avoid startling either the child or the serpent. Harry shrugged. "I didn't know it was special. I talked to a garden snake at the Dursleys once. His face clouded. Uncle Vernon killed it when he saw me talking to it. Said it wasn't natural. Wanda and Wong exchanged glances over Harry's head. Well, here, it's perfectly natural, Wanda assured him. Though perhaps we should keep it between us for now. It's a special ability that not everyone understands. Harry nodded seriously. A secret talent. Like when you move things without touching them. Exactly, Wanda agreed, relieved at his easy acceptance. After bidding farewell to the Slither, Harry allowed himself to be led inside for dinner. Wong had prepared a simple but nutritious meal, careful to keep the portions appropriate for a child who had been undernourished. Wanda noted how Harry still ate cautiously, as if expecting the food to be taken away at any moment, and resolved to help him overcome that fear with time and consistency. After dinner, bath time proved to be another revelation. Harry had apparently never been allowed a proper bath at the Dursleys, making do with quick, cold showers under strict supervision. The concept of warm water and bubble bath was entirely new to him, and his delight at such a simple pleasure made Wanda's heart ache anew. As bedtime approached, Wong took his leave, promising to return with Strange the following day. Wanda helped Harry into new pajamas, soft flannel ones with stars and moons that Wong had conjured from somewhere, and tucked him into his new bed. "Would you like a story?" she asked, sitting on the edge of the bed. Harry nodded eagerly. "I've never had a bedtime story before." The simple statement, delivered without self-pity, just matter-of-fact acceptance, strengthened Wanda's resolve to give this child everything he had been denied. "Well, then we have many to catch up on," she said, selecting a book from the shelf. It was a collection of global fairy tales, and she opened to The Firebird, a tale from her native Sokovia. As she read, Harry's eyes grew heavy, though he fought to stay awake, clearly treasuring this new experience. When she finished the tale, his small voice asked, "Wanda, will you still be here when I wake up?" The question revealed his deepest fear, abandonment after this taste of kindness. "Yes, Harry," she promised. "I'll be right down the hall. And in the morning, we'll have breakfast together, and then perhaps begin some simple magic lessons." He smiled sleepily. "I like doing magic with you. It feels right." "It does, doesn't it?" Wanda agreed softly. "Now sleep, little one. You're safe here." As Harry drifted off, Wanda remained seated beside him, watching the gentle rise and fall of his chest. The events of the day played through her mind, from the moment she had sensed his magical distress to this peaceful scene of a child sleeping safely in a real bed, perhaps for the first time in his young memory. Whatever came tomorrow, whether negotiations with Dumbledore or further exploration of their unique magical connection, Wanda knew with absolute certainty that she had made the right choice in rescuing Harry Potter. Their magics had recognized each other, yes, but more importantly, their wounded hearts had found in each other a chance for healing. As she finally rose to leave him to his dreams, Wanda made a silent vow: whatever this child needed, protection, guidance, education, or simply love, she would provide it. The Scarlet Witch had found her purpose at last. Strange returned the following morning, arriving via portal in the farmhouse living room just as Wanda was helping Harry with breakfast. The boy's eyes lit up at the magical entrance, pancake temporarily forgotten. "Good morning," Strange greeted them, looking somewhat weary, as if he'd been up all night. His usual composed demeanor seemed slightly ruffled. "I see you're settling in." "We are," Wanda confirmed. "Harry's learning the joys of maple syrup, aren't you, little one?" Harry nodded enthusiastically, his mouth too full of pancake to respond verbally. Strange smiled briefly at the domestic scene before his expression turned serious. "I've made contact with Albus Dumbledore," he said. "As expected, the wizarding world is in an uproar over Harry's disappearance. Magical law enforcement from several countries has been mobilized to search for him." Wanda tensed. "And Dumbledore has agreed to meet with us," Strange replied. "Just him, not an official delegation. He was disturbed by my account of Harry's living conditions with the Dursleys. He claims he had monitoring systems in place that should have alerted him to any serious neglect. Clearly they failed, Wanda said tartly. Indeed. He suspects tampering, though by whom he wouldn't say. Strange glanced at Harry, who was listening with interest despite only understanding portions of the conversation. In any case, he's willing to discuss Harry's future care arrangements before involving the wider wizarding authorities. When and where? Wanda asked. This afternoon, here, Strange replied. I've convinced him that neutral ground with existing protections is preferable to either the sanctum or his school. He turned to Harry. Harry, Professor Dumbledore is someone who knew your parents. He's the headmaster of a school called Hogwarts, where many young witches and wizards like you learn to use their magic. Harry's eyes widened. He knew my mum and dad. Really? Yes, Strange confirmed. He can tell you about them, if you'd like to ask him. Harry's expression turned thoughtful, then slightly suspicious, a wariness no 5-year-old should have mastered. Is he going to take me away from Wanda? Strange exchanged a glance with Wanda before answering carefully. That's what we're going to discuss. But I promise you this, no one will force you to go anywhere you don't want to go. And no one is sending you back to the Dursleys, Wanda added firmly. Not ever. Harry seemed to relax slightly at this assurance. Okay. I'd like to hear about my parents. Good man, Strange said with a nod of approval. Now, finish your breakfast. Wong will be joining us shortly to help prepare for the meeting. As Harry returned his attention to his pancakes, Wanda moved closer to Strange, lowering her voice. What aren't you telling me? Strange sighed. Dumbledore believes the blood protection at the Dursleys' home was crucial to keeping Harry safe from Voldemort's followers. He's concerned that without it, the boy might be vulnerable to those who would seek to harm him for what happened that night. We have protections here, Wanda pointed out. Different kinds, Strange acknowledged. Possibly effective, but untested against the specific threats of the wizarding world. He paused. There's something else. The connection between your chaos magic and his wizarding abilities, Dumbledore seemed concerned when I mentioned it. He requested permission to bring a specialist to observe it. Absolutely not, Wanda said immediately. I won't have Harry treated like a laboratory specimen. I made no commitments, Strange assured her. I simply report his request. The decision is yours. Wanda glanced at Harry, who was now attempting to pour his own orange juice with endearing concentration. We'll see how the initial meeting goes, she said finally. As promised, Wong arrived shortly after breakfast, bringing with him additional protective artifacts to strengthen the farmhouse's defenses. While he worked, Wanda helped Harry choose clothes for the day and began a simple lesson in controlling his magical energy. Close your eyes, she instructed, sitting cross-legged on the living room floor opposite Harry. Feel the magic inside you. It's like a warm light in your chest. Harry closed his eyes, his small face scrunched in concentration. I think I feel it, he said after a moment. It's buzzy. Wanda smiled. That's right. Now, try to gather some of that buzzy feeling into your hands, like you're collecting water. Harry's forehead wrinkled with effort. To Wanda's surprise and delight, a faint golden glow actually appeared around his fingertips. That's incredible, Harry, she praised. Most wizarding children can't direct their magic without a wand. Harry opened his eyes, staring in wonder at the golden light emanating from his hands. It feels different than when we do magic together, he observed. Not as big. That's because when our magics combine, they amplify each other, Wanda explained. But it's important that you learn to control your own magic independently too. Why? Harry asked, the golden light fading as his concentration broke. Because magic responds to emotions, Wanda explained. When you're angry or scared, it might act without you telling it to. Learning control helps prevent accidents. Harry nodded seriously, remembering incidents at the Dursleys when strange things had happened during moments of stress. I made Aunt Petunia's favorite vase explode once, he admitted. She was very angry. Exactly, Wanda said. That was your magic protecting you, but without control. With practice, you'll be able to choose when and how to use your abilities. Their lesson was interrupted by Wong, who appeared in the doorway. It's time, he announced. Dumbledore has arrived. Wanda stood, straightening her clothes nervously before offering her hand to Harry. Ready to meet someone who knew your parents? Harry nodded, slipping his small hand into hers. As always, the contact created a faint glow where their magics mingled, though they had both learned to contain the visible manifestation somewhat. In the farmhouse kitchen, Strange was already engaged in quiet conversation with an elderly man whose appearance seemed designed to fulfill every childhood fantasy of what a wizard should look like. Tall and thin, with flowing silver hair and beard that reached his waist, Albus Dumbledore wore robes of deep midnight blue spangled with silver stars. Half-moon spectacles perched on his crooked nose, behind which twinkled bright blue eyes that turned immediately to Harry as he entered. "Ah," Dumbledore said softly, his voice gentle despite the tension in the room. "Harry Potter. How wonderful to see you looking so well." Harry pressed closer to Wanda's side but didn't hide behind her. "Hello," he said politely. "Dr. Strange says you knew my parents." "Indeed I did," Dumbledore confirmed, his eyes briefly clouding with what appeared to be genuine grief. "They were among my finest students, and later, dear friends. This is Wanda," Harry continued, apparently feeling it necessary to make introductions. "She rescued me from the cupboard and showed me real magic." Dumbledore's eyebrows rose slightly at the mention of the cupboard, and he turned his penetrating gaze to Wanda. "Ms. Maximoff. I believe I owe you a debt of gratitude for intervening in what was clearly an unacceptable situation. And perhaps an apology as well, for my failure to detect it." The sincerity in his voice caught Wanda off guard. She had expected defensiveness or bureaucratic evasion, not this direct acknowledgement. "The monitoring charms on Privet Drive were tampered with," Dumbledore continued, addressing Strange now as well. "Only certain individuals knew their nature and location. I have begun an investigation, but that is a matter for another time." He returned his attention to Wanda. "What concerns me most immediately is Harry's welfare and safety." "He's safe here," Wanda said firmly. "And well cared for." "Of that, I have no doubt," Dumbledore replied. "The protections Dr. Strange and Master Wong have established are impressive, if unconventional by wizarding standards." He paused. "However, there are specific dangers to Harry from my world that you may not fully comprehend." "Voldemort's followers," Wanda said, showing she was informed. Strange explained about the blood protection at the Dursleys. Dumbledore nodded gravely. "The sacrifice of Harry's mother, Lily, created a powerful protective charm. While Harry could call home the place where her blood dwells, his aunt's house, he could not be touched or harmed by Voldemort or his followers." "He was being harmed inside that protection," Wanda pointed out sharply. "Yes," Dumbledore acknowledged, genuine regret crossing his features. "A terrible oversight on my part. I believed the blood connection would ensure at least basic care, if not affection." He looked at Harry, who was following the conversation with surprising attentiveness for his age. "I was wrong, Harry, and I am truly sorry for the suffering you endured." Harry studied the old wizard's face with a child's directness. "Did you put me in the cupboard?" "No, child," Dumbledore said gently. "That was your aunt and uncle's doing. But I placed you in their care, so the responsibility ultimately lies with me." Harry considered this, then asked the question clearly foremost in his mind, "Could you tell me about my mum and dad?" Dumbledore's expression softened. "I would be delighted to. Perhaps we might all sit down." Strange gestured toward the living room, where comfortable seating had been arranged. As they settled, Harry choosing to sit beside Wanda rather than near Dumbledore, Wong brought in tea and biscuits. "Your father," James, was exceptionally talented, Dumbledore began, accepting a cup of tea. Particularly at Transfiguration, the magic of changing one thing into another. He was also quite the troublemaker at school, always planning elaborate pranks with his friends. Harry's eyes lit up at this detail, and Wanda could almost see him filing away the information that his father had been something of a mischief maker. Your mother, Lily, was brilliant at charms and potions, Dumbledore continued. She had a kind heart but a fierce temper when confronted with injustice. Her eyes were just like yours, that remarkable green. Aunt Petunia said they died in a car crash, Harry said. But that's not true, is it? A shadow passed over Dumbledore's face. No, Harry, it is not. They died protecting you from a very evil wizard named Voldemort. They were brave until the very end. Harry absorbed this information silently, his small face solemn. Wanda placed a supportive hand on his shoulder, which he leaned into gratefully. Professor Dumbledore, Strange interjected, perhaps we should discuss the current situation and potential arrangements for Harry's future. Dumbledore nodded, though his eyes remained on Harry. Indeed. Though I wonder if young Harry might like to explore the garden while we adults have what might be a rather boring conversation. Harry looked to Wanda questioningly. Only if you want to, she assured him. You can stay if you prefer. I saw some interesting butterflies earlier, Wong offered unexpectedly. I could show you their magical properties. After a moment's consideration, Harry nodded. Okay. But you'll call me if you're talking about me? Of course, Wanda promised, touched by his trust in her to represent his interests. Once Wong had led Harry outside, Dumbledore's expression became more serious. I must be direct, he said. Harry Potter is not just any wizarding child. He is central to a prophecy concerning the eventual return of Voldemort. Return? Wanda questioned sharply. You believe this dark wizard isn't truly defeated? I am certain of it, Dumbledore confirmed grimly. The night he attacked the Potters, he was severely diminished but not destroyed. The connection to Harry through that scar suggests as much. Strange leaned forward. What exactly does this prophecy entail? Dumbledore hesitated, then replied carefully, in essence, it foretells that Harry has the power to vanquish Voldemort permanently, and that, neither can live while the other survives. It is why Voldemort targeted the Potters in the first place. He's a child, Wanda said, anger flaring in her eyes. 5 years old. And you're talking about him defeating a dark wizard? Not now, Dumbledore clarified. The confrontation, when it comes, will be years in the future. But his preparation must begin soon, his magical education, his understanding of our world and its dangers. Which brings us to the current dilemma, Strange interjected. The wizarding authorities are searching for Harry. They believe he's been kidnapped, possibly by remaining followers of Voldemort. Dumbledore nodded. I have temporarily assuaged their concerns by stating he is under my protection at an undisclosed location. But this cannot continue indefinitely. Eventually, Harry must have formal wizarding education. At Hogwarts, Wanda said, recalling the name. Yes, though not until he turns 11, Dumbledore confirmed. In the interim, however, there is the matter of his guardianship and basic magical instruction. He turned his penetrating gaze to Wanda. Ms. Maximoff, may I ask why you feel compelled to take responsibility for Harry? Beyond the obvious rescue from an abusive situation, which any decent person might have undertaken. The question caught Wanda off guard. She had been preparing to defend her right to keep Harry, not explain her motivations. She began, then paused, considering her answer carefully. When I sensed his magical distress, it called to me specifically. As if our magics recognized each other, even from a distance. She met Dumbledore's eyes directly. And when I found him, I saw myself. A child with enormous power, feared and mistreated for being different. Without guidance or understanding. Dumbledore's expression softened slightly. And you wished to provide what you lacked. Yes, Wanda acknowledged. But there's more. When our magics interact, something unprecedented happens. They complement each other. His structured magic provides stability for my chaos abilities, while my reality manipulation amplifies and focuses his innate wizarding talent. So Doctor Strange has informed me, Dumbledore said. It is this aspect that concerns me most. Not because I disapprove, but because it represents an unknown factor in an already complex magical equation. He turned to Strange. I would very much like to observe this interaction, if Ms. Maximoff permits. Strange looked to Wanda, who considered the request. After a moment, she nodded. I'll ask Harry if he's comfortable with it. If he is, then yes. Thank you, Dumbledore said. Now, as to the matter of Harry's immediate future, I propose a compromise. I'm listening, Wanda said cautiously. Harry remains in your care, Dumbledore began, with certain conditions. First, that appropriate wizarding protections be added to this property, supplementing those already in place. Second, that Harry receive basic instruction in wizarding culture and history, to prepare him for eventual attendance at Hogwarts. Third, that I or my designated representative be permitted regular visits to monitor his development and well-being. Wanda exchanged glances with Strange, who gave a slight nod of approval. And in return, she asked. In return, I will officially sanction your guardianship within the wizarding world, using my considerable influence to prevent interference from our Ministry of Magic or other authorities. I will also provide resources for Harry's wizarding education and arrange for any necessary documentation. It was a reasonable offer, more reasonable than Wanda had expected. Still, she had one more concern. And when he turns 11? Will you expect him to leave me to attend Hogwarts full-time? Dumbledore smiled slightly. Hogwarts is a boarding school, yes. But there are holidays, and I see no reason why special arrangements couldn't be made for a student with such unique circumstances. He paused. Additionally, there is nothing preventing you from establishing a residence near Hogsmeade, the wizarding village adjacent to Hogwarts, should you wish to remain close. Wanda felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. She had been prepared for a magical custody battle, not a thoughtful negotiation. I'll need to discuss this with Harry, she said finally. His wishes matter in this. Of course, Dumbledore agreed readily. Children are rarely given enough credit for knowing their own minds. Harry has already demonstrated remarkable perception for his age. As if on cue, the back door opened, and Harry returned with Wong, his hands cupped carefully around something. Wanda! Look what I found. He opened his hands slightly to reveal a tiny, brilliantly blue butterfly with wings that seemed to shimmer with their own light. Mr. Wong says it's a magical species. A luminous azure, Wong confirmed. Rare in this region. It was drawn to Harry's magical signature. It's beautiful, Wanda said, smiling at Harry's delight. Harry, Professor Dumbledore has been telling us some things about your parents and the wizarding world. He has a proposal for us to consider. Harry gently released the butterfly, watching it flutter toward an open window before turning his attention to the adults. His gaze moved between Wanda and Dumbledore, surprisingly shrewd for a child his age. Are you going to let me stay with Wanda? He asked Dumbledore directly. The old wizard's eyebrows rose slightly at the forthrightness of the question. That is indeed what I am proposing, he confirmed. With some conditions to ensure your safety and education. Harry nodded, considering this with a seriousness that seemed out of place on his young face. Good. Because she's the first grown-up who's ever been nice to me. He moved to stand beside Wanda, his small hand finding hers automatically. As their hands joined, the now familiar red and gold energy shimmered briefly around their fingers. Dumbledore's eyes widened at the sight, genuine wonder replacing his usual composed expression. Extraordinary, he murmured. May I? He gestured toward their joined hands, asking permission to examine the phenomenon more closely. Harry looked to Wanda, who nodded reassuringly. It's all right. Professor Dumbledore just wants to understand our special magic. With Harry's cautious permission, Dumbledore approached, drawing what appeared to be a slender stick, a wand, Wanda realized, from his sleeve. He murmured words in what sounded like Latin, moving the wand in intricate patterns around their joined hands. The red and gold energy responded to his magical probing, expanding slightly before settling back into its stable pattern. Dumbledore's expression grew increasingly fascinated. "In all my years," he said softly, "I have never seen such a perfect melding of disparate magical traditions." He stepped back, tucking his wand away. "Ms. Maximoff, your chaos magic appears to be acting as a catalyst for Harry's innate abilities, allowing him to bypass the usual developmental constraints of young wizards. Is that dangerous?" Wanda asked, suddenly concerned. "Not inherently," Dumbledore assured her. "But it will require careful guidance. Harry is effectively learning to channel magic in two different ways simultaneously, through the structured methods of wizardry and through your more intuitive reality manipulation." He smiled at Harry. "You are a very special young wizard, Harry. Even more so than we realized." Harry beamed at the praise, then asked, "Can I still do both kinds of magic? Wanda's kind and wizard kind?" "I believe you can," Dumbledore replied. "Though how exactly that will manifest as you grow remains to be seen. It is, as far as I know, unprecedented." "Wanda is teaching me control," Harry said seriously. "So I don't break things when I'm upset." "An excellent beginning," Dumbledore approved. "And perhaps, with your permission, I might arrange for someone to teach you about wizarding traditions as well. A sort of magical tutor." Harry considered this, then looked up at Wanda. "Would you still teach me too?" "Of course," Wanda assured him. "We're a team, remember?" Harry nodded, satisfied, then turned back to Dumbledore. "Okay. But I want to stay here with Wanda." "That is our arrangement," Dumbledore confirmed. "You will remain with Ms. Maximoff, with regular visits from wizarding instructors to supplement your education." He glanced at Wanda. "I believe Remus Lupin would be an excellent choice. He was a close friend of your parents and is a gifted teacher." The name meant nothing to Wanda, but she nodded, willing to consider it. "We can discuss specific arrangements later. For now, I believe we have an agreement in principle." Dumbledore inclined his head in acknowledgement. "Indeed. I will begin the necessary preparations and return in a few days with formal documentation and the first set of protective enchantments." He turned to Harry once more. "In the meantime, young Harry, might I offer you something? A small token to remember your parents by." From within his robes, Dumbledore produced a small, leather-bound photo album. "These are magical photographs of your parents and their friends. Unlike Muggle, that is, non-magical, photographs, these images move." Harry accepted the album with trembling hands, opening it to reveal a moving photograph of a young couple waving at the camera. The woman had Harry's striking green eyes, while the man shared his unruly black hair. "Mum and Dad?" Harry whispered, his finger gently touching the image. "Yes," Dumbledore confirmed softly. "James and Lily Potter on their wedding day." Tears welled in Harry's eyes as he stared at the first image he'd ever seen of his parents. Wanda placed a supportive hand on his shoulder, feeling her own eyes mist at the poignant moment. "Thank you," Harry said, his voice small but sincere. "You are most welcome," Dumbledore replied. "They would be very proud of the brave boy you are becoming." He rose to his feet. "I should take my leave. There is much to arrange, and the wizarding world remains anxious about your disappearance." Strange stood as well. "I'll create a portal for your return to Hogwarts." As Strange prepared the magical gateway, Dumbledore addressed Wanda one last time. "Ms. Maximoff, I entrust Harry to your care with confidence that you will protect him as fiercely as his own mother would have. But I must warn you, the path ahead will not be easy. Harry's destiny is entwined with forces that have shaped wizarding history for generations." "I don't believe in predestined paths," Wanda replied firmly. Only in choices and their consequences. Dumbledore smiled, his eyes twinkling. A refreshing perspective. Perhaps that is exactly what young Harry needs, someone who sees beyond prophecies to possibilities. He bowed slightly. Until we meet again. With that, he stepped through Strange's portal, which closed behind him with a shower of golden sparks. Harry, still clutching the photo album, looked up at Wanda with eyes bright with tears and hope. Is it really settled? I can stay with you. Wanda knelt to embrace him properly. Yes, little one. This is your home now, for as long as you want it to be. As Harry threw his arms around her neck, their magics flared again, crimson and gold intertwining in a display more brilliant than before. It was as if their powers were celebrating the bond that was forming between them, a connection that transcended traditional magical boundaries. Strange and Wong exchanged significant glances but remained silent, allowing Wanda and Harry their moment. In that embrace, with their magics harmonizing and the first steps toward a stable future established, Wanda felt something she had thought lost forever, the simple joy of family. Not the illusory one she had created in her grief, but something real and growing organically for mutual need and genuine connection. Harry Potter, the boy who lived, had found not just a guardian but a kindred spirit in the Scarlet Witch. And together, they would rewrite the rules of magic itself. Chapter 2, Lessons in Chaos. 6 years had transformed both the farmhouse and its inhabitants. What had once been a simple safe house now hummed with layers of protective magic, some visible only to those with the right kind of sight. Wizarding wards intertwined with mystical barriers. Ancient runes etched into doorframes glowed faintly at dusk. Wind chimes made of enchanted silver tinkled with warnings when magical beings approached. Inside, evidence of an unusual household was everywhere, spell books shared shelves with quantum physics texts, a child's drawing of a Hungarian horntail dragon was pinned beside complex magical formulas, and various magical artifacts, both wizarding and mystical, were carefully displayed or stored throughout the rooms. In the spacious backyard, beneath a maple tree whose leaves had just begun to turn gold with the approach of autumn, a lesson was underway. Focus, Harry, Wanda instructed, her accent still noticeable though softened by years in America. Feel the boundary between realities and then, gently push. 11-year-old Harry Potter stood with his eyes closed, hands extended before him. No longer the small, malnourished child rescued from a cupboard, he had grown into a lanky preteen with perpetually messy black hair and thoughtful green eyes. The lightning scar on his forehead had faded somewhat over the years, though it still occasionally pulsed with strange energy during moments of strong emotion. Crimson energy sparked at his fingertips, not the pure scarlet of Wanda's chaos magic, but a unique blend that incorporated golden threads of his own wizarding power. His face was a mask of concentration as sweat beaded on his forehead. I can feel it, he murmured. Like a thin membrane. Good, Wanda encouraged, circling him slowly. Now visualize what you want. Be specific. Harry's brow furrowed deeper. The air before him shimmered, distorting like heat waves rising from pavement. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft pop, a perfectly ripe apple materialized in midair, hanging suspended before falling into Harry's waiting hand. His eyes snapped open, a triumphant grin spreading across his face. I did it. He examined the apple, turning it over in his hands. It's real. Not an illusion this time. Excellent progress, Wanda said, genuine pride warming her voice. Creating matter from energy is advanced work. Most adult wizards can't do it without a wand and specific incantations. Harry took a bite of the apple, his expression becoming thoughtful as he chewed. It tastes exactly like the ones from the orchard we visited last fall. Because that's what you were thinking of, Wanda explained. Your magic drew on your memory to recreate it perfectly. She sat on a nearby stone bench, gesturing for Harry to join her. Tell me what you felt during the process. This was their ritual after each new achievement, analyzing the magical theory behind the practice. Wanda had learned early in Harry's education that he thrived when understanding the why behind the how. Harry sat beside her, considering the question as he took another bite. It was different from conjuring illusions. Those feel like painting on top of reality. This felt more like. He paused, searching for the right words. Like reaching into another place where the apple already existed and pulling it here. Wanda nodded. That's a perceptive description. In essence, that's exactly what you did. Chaos magic allows us to borrow possibilities from other realities. Wizarding magic typically transforms existing matter or energy. By combining them, you're creating a unique approach, restructuring reality according to wizarding principles. So I didn't create the apple from nothing? Harry asked. Nothing is ever created from nothing, Wanda replied with the patient tone of someone revisiting a fundamental lesson. Energy cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. What you did was reorganize existing energy into the pattern of an apple. Harry nodded, finishing the last of the fruit and tossing the core toward a compost bin at the edge of the garden. With a casual flick of his fingers, he sent a small burst of gold-tinged energy that gently guided the core into the bin when his throw went wide. Show off, Wanda teased, ruffling his hair affectionately. Harry grinned, then glanced toward the sky as a distinctive screech caught his attention. Mail's here. A tawny owl swooped down from above, landing gracefully on a nearby post. Tied to its leg was a small scroll. Harry approached and carefully untied the message, offering the owl a treat from a pouch he kept in his pocket for this purpose. It's from Remus, he announced after unrolling the parchment. He'll be here tomorrow instead of Thursday. Something about the moon cycle. Wanda nodded, understanding the subtext. Remus Lupin, Harry's wizarding tutor for the past 6 years and a close friend of his late parents, was a werewolf, a fact that had initially concerned her until she witnessed firsthand his gentle nature and dedication to Harry's education. We should prepare the guest room, then, she said. And perhaps review those defensive spells he's been teaching you. I'm sure he'll want to test your progress. Harry's expression brightened. Maybe he'll finally teach me how to produce a Patronus. That's very advanced magic, Wanda reminded him, though she couldn't help smiling at his enthusiasm. Even by wizarding standards. But I've been practicing the theory, Harry insisted. And with our combined magic, he was interrupted by the distinctive sound of a portal opening. They both turned to see a circular gateway of golden sparks forming near the house. Through it stepped Dr. Strange, his cloak of levitation billowing dramatically despite the lack of wind. Show off, Harry muttered, echoing Wanda's earlier teasing, though his smile betrayed his genuine affection for the sorcerer who had been a constant presence in his life. I heard that, Strange replied dryly as he approached. And coming from the boy who used chaos magic to retrieve a frisbee yesterday, that's rather hypocritical. Harry had the grace to look slightly abashed. It was stuck really high in the tree. Strange's stern expression softened as he produced a small package from within his robes. Happy early birthday. Harry accepted the gift with surprise. My birthday's not for 2 weeks. Unfortunately, I'll be in another dimension on the actual day, Strange explained. A rather tedious conference of mystical practitioners that can't be rescheduled. The Cosmic Convergence Summit? Wanda asked. Strange nodded. 3rd Realm, 7th Iteration. They insist on my attendance as Sorcerer Supreme, though it's mostly ceremonial. He gestured to the package in Harry's hands. Go on, open it. Harry carefully unwrapped the package to reveal a small, ornate silver pocket watch. When he pressed the clasp, it opened to display not only a conventional clock face but also several smaller dials and indicators whose purpose wasn't immediately obvious. It's a Chronos compass, Strange explained. It not only tells standard time but also tracks temporal anomalies, dimensional disturbances, and magical surges in your vicinity. I thought it might be useful given your unique magical signature. This is brilliant, Harry said, examining the intricate device with fascination. Thank you. Strange nodded, pleased by his reaction. Wong suggested a book, but I thought something more practical might serve you better. He turned to Wanda. Speaking of Wong, he sends his regards and mentioned that the protective wards need refreshing on the north side. Apparently there was some magical bleed-through detected there last week. Wanda frowned. I felt something, but couldn't pinpoint it. I'll look into it today. I can help, Harry offered eagerly. I've been practicing those stabilizing runes Professor Dumbledore showed me. The mention of Dumbledore reminded Wanda of another matter. Stephen, do you know if there's been any word about Harry's Hogwarts letter? It should have arrived by now if they're still planning to include him. Strange's expression became carefully neutral. That's actually part of why I came today. There's been some debate within the Hogwarts Board of Governors regarding Harry's situation. Harry's excitement dimmed. They don't want me to attend. Quite the opposite, Strange assured him. They very much want you there. The debate centers on your special circumstances. Your combined magical abilities raise questions about how the standard curriculum would apply to you. Wanda placed a protective hand on Harry's shoulder. Dumbledore assured us years ago that arrangements could be made. And he's keeping that promise, Strange said. But apparently there are factions within their Ministry of Magic who are concerned about potential risks. A child with reality-altering abilities is unprecedented in their world. As if I'd blow up the school or something, Harry muttered, a hint of bitterness in his voice. Strange regarded him seriously. Would you like the truth, Harry? Because the truth is, you could. Your potential power at full development exceeds anything in recorded wizarding history. That makes people nervous, especially those responsible for the safety of hundreds of other children. Harry fell silent, the weight of Strange's words settling heavily on his young shoulders. Wanda shot Strange a reproachful look, but the Sorcerer Supreme didn't retract his statement. It doesn't mean you shouldn't go, Strange continued more gently. It just means that additional precautions and arrangements need to be established first. Dumbledore is handling it, from what I understand. So the letter will come? Harry asked, his voice small but hopeful. I believe it will, Strange confirmed. Just perhaps not through conventional owl post. As if on cue, a flash of brilliant flame erupted in the center of the garden, causing all three of them to step back in surprise. When the fire dissipated, a magnificent crimson bird hovered in the air, its gold and scarlet plumage glowing in the afternoon sunlight. Fox, Harry breathed in recognition, having seen the phoenix in Dumbledore's photos and illustrations in his magical texts. The phoenix trilled a musical note that seemed to fill the air with warmth, then gracefully descended to perch on a nearby garden chair. Clutched in its talons was a thick envelope of yellowed parchment sealed with crimson wax. Dramatic timing, Wanda murmured to Strange. Did you arrange this? Contrary to popular belief, I don't actually orchestrate everything, Strange replied with a hint of amusement. Though I admit, I couldn't have planned it better myself. Harry approached the phoenix cautiously, his expression one of wonder. Hello, Fox, he said softly. I'm Harry. The magnificent bird inclined its head in what appeared to be acknowledgement, then extended the leg holding the envelope. Harry gently took it, and the phoenix let out another musical trill before launching into the air, circling once overhead, and disappearing in another flash of flame. Well, Strange remarked, it seems Dumbledore wanted to make a statement with that delivery. Harry barely heard him, his attention fixed on the envelope in his hands. The address was written in emerald green ink, Mr. H. Potter, the Eastern Bedroom, the Safe House, Upstate New York, USA. They know exactly where I sleep, Harry noted, impressed despite himself. Wizarding mail is quite precise, Strange confirmed. Though normally they couldn't have located this house at all, given its protections. Fox is special. With slightly trembling fingers, Harry broke the wax seal bearing the Hogwarts crest, a lion, eagle, badger, and snake surrounding a large letter H, and pulled out several sheets of parchment. The first was a standard acceptance letter, similar to those Remus had shown him from his own school days, though with some notable differences. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Source, CHF, Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confede, of Wizards. Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Given your unique educational background and magical abilities, a specialized curriculum has been arranged in consultation with your guardian, Ms. Maximoff, and your current instructor, Mr. Lupin. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl no later than July 31st. A representative will arrive on August 15th to escort you for the purchase of school supplies in Diagon Alley, London. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress. The second page contained the standard list of required equipment, from robes to cauldrons to spellbooks. A third page, however, was clearly non-standard, a personal note from Dumbledore himself. Dear Harry, congratulations on your Hogwarts acceptance. As we've discussed during my visits over the years, your education at Hogwarts will necessarily take a different form than that of your classmates, given your extraordinary talents and prior training. I have arranged for you to have private lessons in addition to standard classes, focusing on the control and ethical application of your unique magical abilities. Professor McGonagall, Professor Flitwick, and I will oversee these supplementary sessions personally. Additionally, arrangements have been made for Ms. Maximoff to have unrestricted access to Hogsmeade Village, where accommodations have been prepared should she wish to remain close during term time. I look forward to welcoming you to Hogwarts, where both your parents found not only education but a true home. Yours most sincerely, Albus Dumbledore. Harry looked up from the letters, his eyes bright with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. It's really happening, he said. I'm going to Hogwarts. Wanda smiled, masking her own complex emotions. She had known this day would come, had prepared for it for 6 years, yet still felt the bittersweet tug of impending separation. Yes, you are. And you'll be brilliant. The accommodations for you are a significant concession, Strange observed. Hogwarts rarely allows non-staff adults to stay nearby during term. I won't be hovering, Wanda assured Harry quickly, seeing a flicker of concern cross his face. You deserve the full experience. I'll just be close if you need me. Harry nodded, relief evident in his expression. At 11, he was navigating that delicate balance between wanting independence and still needing the security of his guardian's presence. There's more, he said, examining the final enclosed document. A list of books and supplies that aren't on the standard list. Look, principles of reality manipulation, a theoretical approach and ethical considerations in advanced magic. Dumbledore's not taking any chances, Strange remarked. He's preparing a full educational framework for your specific abilities. What's this one? Wanda asked, pointing to another title on the specialized list, A Clemency for the Young Mind, Protecting Thoughts and Emotions. Strange's expression grew serious. Mind protection. A wise precaution, given Harry's significance in their world and the unusual nature of his scar. Harry's hand unconsciously rose to touch the lightning-shaped mark. Over the years, they had learned that it was not a simple scar but a complex magical anomaly, a connection to Voldemort that occasionally manifested as dreams or emotional echoes. Dumbledore had been particularly concerned about this aspect of Harry's condition. Do you think I'll fit in? Harry asked suddenly, the question revealing the insecurity beneath his excitement. I'll be different from everyone else again. Wanda's heart ached at the familiar worry. Despite 6 years of love and stability, Harry still sometimes struggled with the fear of being an outsider, a legacy of his early years with the Dursleys. You'll find your people, she assured him. Just as I did. Besides, from what Remus tells us, Hogwarts celebrates individuality. Each house values different strengths. Speaking of houses, Strange interjected, have you given any thought to where you might be sorted? Harry shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant though his tension was evident. Remus says I have qualities of all 4. Gryffindor courage from my parents, Ravenclaw intelligence from all my studies, Hufflepuff loyalty from. He glanced at Wanda with a small smile. From learning what family really means. And Slytherin, well, there's the Parseltongue. His ability to speak to snakes had been a point of concern for Remus when first discovered, given its historical association with dark wizards. Wanda, however, had encouraged Harry to view it as simply another facet of his magical heritage, neither good nor evil in itself, just rare and potentially useful. Wherever you're sorted, it will be the right place for you, Wanda said firmly. And if anyone gives you trouble about your differences, I know, Harry interrupted with a grin. Don't turn them into a toad. Use my words first. Exactly, Wanda confirmed, returning his smile. Magic is always the last resort, not the first. Strange cleared his throat. Well, now that the immediate question of Harry's acceptance has been resolved, I should report back to Wong about those wards. He turned to Harry. Congratulations again, Harry. Hogwarts is gaining an exceptional student. Thanks for the watch, Harry replied. And for everything else. The lessons, the books, the advice. Strange looked momentarily uncomfortable with the gratitude, as was his way. Yes, well. Just try not to rewrite reality while I'm in another dimension. The paperwork is atrocious. With that, he conjured another portal and stepped through it with a final nod, the gateway closing behind him in a shower of golden sparks. Once alone, Wanda turned to Harry. How are you really feeling about all this? Hogwarts, leaving home, being among other wizard children for the first time. Harry considered the question seriously. Excited. Nervous. Worried about controlling my magic without you nearby. He fidgeted with the Hogwarts letter. What if I accidentally do something chaos magic-like during transfiguration class? The other kids might think I'm a freak. You are not a freak, Wanda said firmly, the old Dursley insult still capable of stirring her anger even after all these years. You are exceptional. And you've worked harder on control than any child I've ever known. She placed her hand over his. Remember what Remus taught you about magical cores? Harry nodded. Every wizard has a unique magical signature. Mine just happens to be more unique than most. Exactly. And in 6 years, how many truly destructive accidents have you had with your magic? Harry thought about it. 3. No, for if you count the time I accidentally turned the sofa into butterflies. For minor incidents in 6 years of intensive magical training, Wanda confirmed. That's an exceptional record even for a normal wizarding child. She squeezed his hand. You're ready for this, Harry. You've earned it. Harry's expression brightened with renewed confidence. I should write to Hermione. She'll be thrilled about the specialized book list. Wanda smiled at the mention of Hermione Granger, a brilliant young witch Harry had befriended 2 years earlier under unusual circumstances. Hermione had been visiting New York with her parents when a magical accident in the American Wizarding District had revealed her as a Muggle-born witch with unusual potential. Strange, who had been alerted to the incident, had introduced the families, recognizing that both unusual magical children might benefit from friendship before entering the wizarding world proper. The connection had been immediate and profound. In Hermione, Harry had found an intellectual equal who shared his thirst for knowledge and understanding. In Harry, Hermione had found someone who didn't think her analytical mind and passion for learning were strange or off-putting. Their regular correspondence and occasional visits had become an important part of Harry's life. Yes, write to her, Wanda encouraged. And perhaps we should invite her family for dinner soon. They'll be preparing for Hogwarts as well. Harry was already mentally composing his letter as they walked back toward the house. Do you think they'll let us room together? I know boys and girls are usually separate, but maybe with the special arrangements. That might be pushing it, Wanda said with a laugh. But I'm sure you'll see plenty of each other regardless. Especially if you're sorted into the same house. I hope so, Harry said earnestly. It would be nice to have at least one friend going in. As they reached the porch, another owl swooped down, this one smaller and somehow more energetic than the tawny post owl from earlier. It dropped a letter directly into Harry's hands before performing a celebratory loop and zooming away again. Speak of the devil, Harry laughed, recognizing Hermione's neat handwriting on the envelope. She must have gotten her letter today too. The next hour was spent in happy planning as Harry read Hermione's excited letter and composed his reply. Wanda watched him with a mixture of pride and wistfulness. Her little boy was growing up, preparing to take his first major steps into a world that was part of his birthright but still largely unknown to him. That evening, as Harry pored over his collection of wizarding texts in preparation for his upcoming journey, Wanda stood on the porch, watching the sunset and reflecting on the 6 years that had transformed both their lives. The soft sound of footsteps behind her announced Harry's presence before he spoke. "Are you okay with all this?" he asked, coming to stand beside her. "Me going to Hogwarts, being away for months at a time?" Wanda turned to look at him, struck by the maturity in his question. "I'm going to miss you terribly," she admitted honestly. "But this is right, Harry. It's your heritage, your birthright. And I'll be nearby in Hogsmeade whenever you need me." "I'll still need you," Harry assured her quickly. "Just maybe not every day like before." "That's how it should be," Wanda said, putting her arm around his shoulders. "Growing up means gradually standing on your own. But I'll always be your anchor, Harry. No matter how far you go or how powerful you become." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. The future loomed ahead with its uncertainties and challenges, but in that moment, there was just the warmth of family and the quiet confidence of being exactly where they were meant to be. The morning of August 15th arrived with an air of anticipation. Harry had been packed and ready for days, his trunk containing an eclectic mixture of wizarding supplies already on hand and personal items he couldn't bear to leave behind, including the photo album of his parents that Dumbledore had given him 6 years ago. The representative should arrive at 10, Wanda reminded him as they ate breakfast. "Remember, this person may not know about your unique magical situation, so, be discreet." "I know," Harry finished for her. "No casual reality manipulation in Diagon Alley." Wanda smiled. "Exactly. This is about introducing you to the wizarding world as it exists for most magical people. Observe and learn before revealing what makes you different." Harry nodded, though a hint of mischief flashed in his eyes. "But if a dark wizard attacks, all bets are off, right?" "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," Wanda replied dryly. "Diagon Alley is supposed to be perfectly safe. That's why Dumbledore arranged for your school shopping to be done there rather than in America's magical districts. Plus I need a proper wand," Harry added. "Remus says Ollivander's is the best." Though Harry had demonstrated considerable ability with wandless magic thanks to his connection with Wanda's chaos abilities, both Remus and Dumbledore had insisted he would still need a proper wizarding wand for structured spellcasting at Hogwarts. At precisely 10 o'clock, a sharp crack sounded from the garden, the distinctive noise of wizarding apparition. Wanda and Harry exchanged glances before moving to the front door. Standing in their garden, looking slightly disoriented but recovering quickly, was a tall, thin woman in emerald green robes, her black hair pulled into a severe bun. Professor McGonagall, Harry recognized her from photographs and Dumbledore's descriptions, though they had never formally met. The woman's stern expression softened slightly as her eyes found Harry. "Mr. Potter. You look very much like your father, though you have your mother's eyes." Her gaze shifted to Wanda. "Ms. Maximoff. A pleasure to finally meet you in person. Albus speaks highly of your dedication to Harry's education." "The pleasure is mine, Professor," Wanda replied, extending her hand. "Harry has been looking forward to this day for weeks." McGonagall shook Wanda's hand with a firm grip, her assessing gaze taking in the unique household with professional interest. "I must say, this is among the more unusual pre-Hogwarts situations I've encountered, but Albus assures me the arrangements have been most beneficial for Mr. Potter." I hope you'll find my preparation adequate, Harry said, a touch of anxiety in his voice. He had tremendous respect for the professor's reputation from Remus's stories. McGonagall's lips quirked in what might have been a smile. Mr. Lupin reports that your theoretical knowledge already exceeds OWL level in several subjects, Mr. Potter. I expect you'll find the practical application equally stimulating. She checked a small watch pinned to her robes. We should proceed if we are to complete our shopping today. Ms. Maximoff, will you be accompanying us? If that's permitted, Wanda replied. This will be my first proper introduction to Wizarding Britain as well. Albus anticipated as much, McGonagall said with a nod. I have a portkey authorized for the three of us. She produced what appeared to be an ordinary teacup. This will transport us directly to a private arrival room at the Leaky Cauldron, the gateway to Diagon Alley. Harry had used portkeys before during visits with Remus to wizarding sites in America, but Wanda looked slightly apprehensive. Unlike Harry's wizarding magic or strange mystical techniques, wizarding transportation methods like portkeys and apparition function differently from her chaos magic teleportation. It's a bit of a spin, Harry warned her. But over quickly. We'll be departing in 30 seconds, McGonagall announced. Please place a finger on the cup and hold it there until we arrive. They did as instructed, and moments later, Harry felt the familiar hook-behind-the-navel sensation as the portkey activated. The world dissolved into a blur of color and sound before solidifying again into a small, comfortable room with a fireplace and several chairs. Welcome to the Leaky Cauldron, McGonagall said as they regained their balance. This is a private arrival room reserved for special circumstances. The public portion of the establishment is through that door. Harry helped steady Wanda, who looked slightly disoriented from the journey. Okay, he asked quietly. She nodded, composing herself quickly. Different from my method, but efficient. McGonagall led them through the door into a dark, somewhat shabby pub filled with an eclectic assortment of witches and wizards. A few glanced up at their entrance but quickly returned to their conversations or meals, McGonagall's authoritative presence apparently discouraging undue curiosity. Morning, Professor, called the barkeep, a bald man with a friendly face. All set for the new term? Preparations continue apace, Tom, McGonagall replied with a crisp nod. Just escorting a new student today. Tom's eyes widened slightly as they fell on Harry, his gaze flickering to the partially visible scar beneath his messy fringe. Bless my soul, he whispered. Is that? We're on a tight schedule, I'm afraid, McGonagall interrupted smoothly. Perhaps another time. She guided Harry and Wanda through the pub quickly, heading for a small courtyard in the back. Once there, she drew her wand and tapped a specific pattern on the brick wall. 3 up, 2 across, she explained to Harry. Should you need to access the alley on your own in the future. The bricks rearranged themselves, opening to reveal a winding cobblestone street lined with the most extraordinary collection of shops Harry had ever seen, despite his exposure to magical places in America. This was different, older, more whimsical, steeped in centuries of wizarding tradition. Diagon Alley, McGonagall announced with a hint of pride. Our first stop will be Gringotts, the Wizarding Bank, to access your family vault. As they made their way down the bustling street, Harry tried not to stare too obviously at the remarkable sights, owls perched in front of Elop's Owl Emporium, cauldrons of every size stacked outside a metalware shop, windows displaying everything from self-stirring spoons to racing brooms. It's amazing, he murmured to Wanda, who seemed equally captivated by the vibrant magical community. Different from the American wizarding districts, she observed. More, concentrated. Less integrated with the mundane world. McGonagall overheard the comment. British Wizarding Society has maintained stricter separation from Muggles than our American counterparts, she explained. A consequence of historical differences in our development. They approached an imposing white marble building that towered over the neighboring shops. Gringotts, McGonagall identified. Run by goblins, who take security extremely seriously. I advise both of you to be polite and direct in all dealings. Inside, Harry was fascinated by the goblin tellers working at high desks, counting gems or examining documents through jewelers' loupes. McGonagall approached one such teller, presenting a small golden key. "Mr. Harry Potter wishes to access his trust vault," she stated clearly. The goblin examined the key carefully before nodding. "Griphook will take you down." What followed was an exhilarating cart ride deep beneath London, through twisting passages and over underground ravines. When they finally stopped at Vault 687, Harry was surprised by the substantial pile of gold, silver, and bronze coins behind the door. "Your parents provided for you," McGonagall explained, seeing his expression. "This is merely your trust vault for school expenses. The main Potter family vault will become accessible to you when you come of age." Under McGonagall's guidance, Harry collected an appropriate amount for his school supplies and a bit extra for personal expenses during the term. Wanda observed silently, allowing Harry to manage this aspect of his wizarding heritage himself, though he noted her studying the currency system with interest. Back on the surface, they began the process of collecting Harry's school supplies. Madame Malkin's for robes, Flourish and Blot's for books, where Harry had to be gently discouraged from purchasing the entire store, the apothecary for potions ingredients, and various other shops for cauldrons, telescopes, and other equipment. Throughout their shopping, Harry noticed occasional double-takes from passers-by who spotted his scar, but McGonagall's presence seemed to deter most from approaching directly. Still, whispers followed them. "Is that Harry Potter? Where has he been all these years? Doesn't look like what I expected." "You're something of a celebrity here," Wanda observed quietly as they left the apothecary. "More so than in America." Harry nodded uncomfortably. "Remus explained it, but experiencing it is different. I don't remember doing anything to earn this attention." "Fame rarely corresponds to merit," McGonagall commented, overhearing him again. "A lesson many adults never learn. I'm pleased to see you already have perspective on the matter, Mr. Potter." Their final stop was the one Harry had been most anticipating, Ollivander's wand shop. The narrow, shabby store had an atmosphere of hushed magical potential that was palpable even from the doorway. "Ah, Minerva McGonagall," called a soft voice as they entered. An old man with wide, pale eyes emerged from the shadows. "Fur and dragon heartstring, 9.5 inches, rather stiff. Still serving you well, I trust?" "Perfectly, thank you, Garrick," McGonagall replied. Ollivander's uncanny eyes moved to Harry. "Harry Potter. I've been expecting you." Then, surprisingly, his gaze shifted to Wanda. "And, interesting. Very interesting. A wielder of magic outside our traditions. Chaos magic, if I'm not mistaken." Wanda stiffened slightly. "You can tell. Wand makers must be sensitive to all forms of magical energy, Ms. Maximoff. Wanda Maximoff. Ms. Maximoff. A pleasure." Ollivander returned his attention to Harry. "I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Your mother's was willow, 10.25 inches, swishy. Excellent for charm work. Your father favored mahogany, 11 inches, pliable. Powerful for transfiguration." He leaned closer. "But I sense you may require something unique." Harry exchanged a quick glance with Wanda. Could Ollivander sense the dual nature of his magical core? "Let us begin," the wand maker said, producing a measuring tape that began taking measurements of Harry's arm, hand, and even the space between his nostrils, apparently of its own accord. Meanwhile, Ollivander retrieved boxes from the shelves, muttering to himself. "Try this," he said finally, presenting a wand. "Beechwood and dragon heartstring. 9 inches. Nice and flexible." Harry took it, but before he could wave it, Ollivander snatched it back. "No, no. Definitely not." He offered another. "Maple and phoenix feather. 7 inches. Quite whippy." This process continued through several wands, each rejected almost immediately by Ollivander. Rather than growing frustrated, the wand maker seemed increasingly excited. Tricky customer, eh? Not to worry, we'll find the perfect match here somewhere. I wonder, now, yes, why not, unusual combination, holly and phoenix feather, 11 inches, nice and supple. When Harry grasped this wand, he felt an immediate warmth in his fingers. He raised the wand and brought it swishing down through the dusty air. A stream of red and gold sparks shot from the end like a firework, casting dancing spots of light on the walls. Wanda caught her breath. The gold was identical to the color that manifested when Harry accessed his wizarding magic through her chaos abilities. The red, however, was not her scarlet shade but a true crimson. Oh, bravo! Ollivander cried. Yes, indeed, oh, very good. Well, how curious, how very curious. What's curious? Harry asked, still admiring the wand that felt so right in his hand. Ollivander fixed Harry with his pale stare. I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. Every single wand. It so happens that the phoenix whose tail feather is in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is very curious indeed that you should be destined for this wand when its brother, why, its brother gave you that scar. Harry felt a chill run down his spine. Voldemort had the brother wand? McGonagall flinched at the name, but Ollivander nodded solemnly. The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. I think we must expect great things from you. After all, he who must not be named did great things, terrible, yes, but great. Wanda stepped forward protectively. Is there any danger in Harry using a wand connected to Voldemort's? Again, McGonagall winced at the name, but Ollivander didn't seem perturbed. No danger, Ms. Maximoff. Merely a connection that may prove significant someday. His pale eyes studied Harry with renewed interest. But there's more, isn't there? This wand responds not just to traditional wizarding magic but to something else. Something I've never quite seen before. Harry glanced at McGonagall, who gave a subtle nod, apparently deeming Ollivander trustworthy. I have a unique magical signature, Harry admitted carefully. A combination of wizarding magic and, something else. Fascinating, Ollivander murmured. That would explain the unusual resonance. This wand will serve you well for traditional spell casting, Mr. Potter, but I sense you are capable of much more without it. He carefully placed the wand back in its box. 7 galleons, if you please. As they left the shop, Harry couldn't help feeling that Ollivander had seen more than he'd let on. Do you think it's bad? He asked Wanda quietly. Having the brother wand to Voldemort's? I think it's just another piece of the connection you already knew existed, Wanda replied. Neither good nor bad in itself, its significance depends on what you choose to do with it. McGonagall, who had been silent during this exchange, spoke up as they approached the leaky cauldron. Mr. Potter, there is one final stop before we return. The headmaster suggested you might appreciate a visit to Magical Menagerie or Elop's Owl Emporium to select a familiar. While not required, many students find a magical pet both companionable and useful. Harry brightened at the suggestion. Could I really? I've always wanted an owl of my own for post. A sensible choice, McGonagall approved. Elop's has the finest selection in Britain. 20 minutes later, they emerged from the shop with a beautiful snowy owl in a brass cage, her amber eyes regarding Harry with what seemed like approval. She's perfect, Harry said, admiring the owl's pristine white feathers. I think I'll call her Hedwig. I read the name in A History of Magic and liked it. A noble name, McGonagall commented. Now, shall we return? I believe we've completed our shopping most efficiently. Using the same port key, they returned to the farmhouse, Harry's new supplies and Hedwig in tow. The owl seemed remarkably unperturbed by the magical transportation, merely ruffling her feathers indignantly before settling again. Thank you for escorting us, Professor, Wanda said as McGonagall prepared to depart. It was enlightening to see the British wizarding world firsthand. Indeed. And thank you, Ms. Maximoff, for your exemplary care of Mr. Potter. It is evident that he has thrived under your guardianship. McGonagall turned to Harry. Mr. Potter, I look forward to welcoming you at Hogwarts on September 1st. The Hogwarts Express departs from King's Cross Station, platform 9 3/4, at 11 o'clock sharp. Your ticket is with your acceptance letter. Platform 9 3/4? Harry questioned. I don't remember seeing that on the station maps. McGonagall's lips twitched. It is concealed from Muggle view, of course. To access it, simply walk straight at the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. Do not stop and do not be afraid you will crash into it. Best to do it at a bit of a run if you're nervous. With that practical advice, and a promise to send detailed information about the Hogsmeade accommodations for Wanda, Professor McGonagall disapparated with a sharp crack. Harry spent the remainder of the day organizing his new supplies and introducing Hedwig to her new home. The owl seemed to approve of the farmhouse, especially when Harry showed her the open window in his room through which she could come and go as she pleased. She's incredibly intelligent, Wanda observed as Hedwig accepted an owl treat from Harry's fingers with dignified appreciation. I think she understands everything we're saying. Wizarding owls are magical creatures, Harry explained. Remus says they're much smarter than ordinary owls. They can find anyone you want to send mail to, even if you don't know where they are. The next 2 weeks passed in a flurry of preparation. Remus visited for several days to help Harry prepare for the transition to Hogwarts, offering insights about the school that went beyond what books could teach. The moving staircases take some getting used to, he advised during one evening discussion. And be careful of Peeves the poltergeist. He's not malicious exactly, but he loves causing chaos. Remus smiled. Though perhaps you'll have a unique perspective on chaos. What about the teachers? Harry asked. Besides Professor McGonagall and Professor Dumbledore, who should I know about? Professor Flitwick teaches charms, he's part goblin, brilliant mind, very fair. Professor Sprout handles herbology, earthy, practical, kind-hearted. Binns teaches history of magic, he's a ghost, and unfortunately, the most boring lecturer you'll ever encounter. Remus hesitated. And there's Professor Snape. The potions master, Harry recalled from his reading. You've mentioned him before. Remus nodded, his expression complicated. Severus Snape was in our year at Hogwarts. Brilliant at potions, but, there was bad blood between him and your father. I should warn you that he may be predisposed to dislike you based on that history. That hardly seems fair, Wanda interjected. Harry isn't James. No, but he looks remarkably like him, Remus replied. Just be prepared, Harry. Do your best in his class and try not to take any hostility personally. Dumbledore trusts Snape implicitly, whatever his personal feelings might be. The conversation shifted to houses and the sorting ceremony, with Remus carefully avoiding influencing Harry's preferences. The sorting hat takes your choice into account, he explained. It's not just about innate qualities but about where you want to be, what values you wish to embody. As the departure date approached, Harry grew increasingly excited yet apprehensive. The night before they were to leave for London, he found himself unable to sleep, sitting instead by his bedroom window with Hedwig perched beside him, stroking her feathers gently. A soft knock on his door preceded Wanda's entrance. Can't sleep, she asked, though it was hardly a question. Harry shook his head. Too much thinking. Wanda sat beside him on the window seat. Want to share those thoughts? What if I don't fit in? Harry asked, voicing his deepest fear. Not just because of my different magic, but I've never really been around other kids much except Hermione. What if I don't know how to be normal? Normal is overrated, Wanda replied with a small smile. But I understand the concern. She thought for a moment. When I first joined the Avengers, I felt the same way. I had powers the others didn't understand, a background they couldn't relate to. I worried I would always be an outsider. What changed? I realize that fitting in isn't about being the same as everyone else. It's about finding where your differences complement theirs. She placed a hand on his shoulder. You won't connect with everyone at Hogwarts, Harry, and that's okay. You'll find your people, the ones who appreciate you for exactly who you are, unique magic and all. Harry considered this, taking comfort in her perspective. I wish you could come all the way to Hogwarts. I'll be just in Hogsmeade, she reminded him. Close enough if you need me, but far enough to give you independence. She smiled. Besides, I think it's time the wizarding world got to know the real Harry Potter, not just the boy who lived of legend. I'm not sure they're ready for that, Harry said with a hint of mischief. Maybe not, Wanda agreed. But they're getting him anyway. King's Cross Station was bustling with Monday morning commuters when Wanda and Harry arrived the next day. They had traveled to London the conventional way, a commercial flight followed by a taxi to the station, wanting to avoid drawing magical attention before necessary. Navigating through the crowds with Harry's trunk on a trolley and Hedwig's cage perched precariously on top, they made their way to the barrier between platforms 9 and 10. It looks very solid, Wanda observed, studying the seemingly ordinary brick wall. McGonagall said to walk straight at it, Harry reminded her, though he too was eyeing the barrier with healthy skepticism. Want me to go first? Wanda nodded. I'll be right behind you. Harry positioned his trolley, took a deep breath, and walked purposefully toward the barrier. Just as he braced for impact, he passed through what felt like a curtain of cool mist and emerged onto an entirely different platform. A Scarlet steam engine waited on the tracks, billowing white smoke, while a sign overhead proclaimed, Hogwarts Express, Platform 9 3/4. Moments later, Wanda appeared beside him, her eyes widening at the magical scene. Impressive, she murmured. The platform was crowded with families, children in robes or muggle clothing, parents giving last-minute instructions, owls hooting in cages, cats winding around legs. The atmosphere was charged with excitement and the bittersweet emotions of departure. Harry! Harry! A familiar voice cut through the noise, and Harry turned to see Hermione Granger pushing her way toward them, her bushy brown hair bouncing with each determined step. Behind her followed her parents, looking slightly overwhelmed by the magical surroundings. Hermione! Harry called back, genuinely delighted to see his friend. They had exchanged letters regularly but hadn't seen each other in person for several months. Hermione reached them, slightly breathless. I was worried we wouldn't find you in this crowd. Isn't it exciting? I've read everything I could about Hogwarts, of course, but seeing the Express in person is something else entirely. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and Harry felt his nervousness receding in the face of her confidence. Have you found a compartment yet? Not yet. I was hoping we could sit together. There was the slightest hint of uncertainty in her question, revealing that beneath her academic assurance, Hermione shared Harry's social anxieties. Definitely, Harry confirmed, relieved to have a friendly face for the journey. The Granger parents caught up, greeting Wanda warmly. Over the past 2 years, the families had developed a friendship based on their shared experience of raising magical children in non-magical environments. Nervous? Dr. Granger asked Wanda quietly as the children discussed which compartment to choose. Terribly, Wanda admitted. Though I'll be nearby in Hogsmeade, it's still a big step. At least you'll be close, Mrs. Granger said with a sigh. We'll be back in London, waiting for holiday breaks and letters. A whistle sounded, indicating 5 minutes until departure. Suddenly, the abstract concept of Harry leaving became an imminent reality, and Wanda felt her throat tighten. Let's get your trunks on board, she suggested, maintaining composure for Harry's sake. With the help of an older red-headed student who introduced himself as Percy Weasley, they managed to load the heavy trunks onto the train and find an empty compartment. As the final whistle blew, Harry and Hermione leaned out the window for last goodbyes. Remember everything we practiced, Wanda said, reaching up to straighten Harry's collar unnecessarily. Control, focus, intention. I will, Harry promised. I'll write as soon as we arrive. Use Hedwig, Wanda reminded him, glancing at the snowy owl who seemed to be observing the proceedings with regal interest. And remember, if you need me for anything at all, you'll be in Hogsmeade, Harry finished with a smile that didn't quite hide his own emotion. I know. The train began to move. Wanda walked alongside it until it gathered too much speed, her hand raised in farewell. The last glimpse Harry had of her was standing on the platform, her red leather jacket distinct among the crowd, watching the train until it turned a corner and disappeared from view. Inside the compartment, Harry settled across from Hermione, a mixture of excitement and apprehension swirling in his stomach. So, he said, attempting normalcy, which house are you hoping for? Hermione launched into a detailed analysis of each house's merits, and Harry found comfort in her familiar intellectual approach. As the train carried them north toward Hogwarts, the countryside gradually changing from urban sprawl to rolling fields, they discussed everything from class subjects to wizard chess to the magical theory behind moving staircases. Their conversation was interrupted by the compartment door sliding open to reveal a round-faced boy looking tearful. Sorry, he said, but have you seen a toad at all? I've lost mine. No, sorry, Harry replied sympathetically. I've lost him, the boy wailed. He keeps getting away from me. What's your toad's name? Hermione asked practically. Trevor, the boy sniffled. Harry hesitated for just a moment, then made a decision. I might be able to help, he offered. I have a knack for finding things. Hermione shot him a quick, questioning glance, clearly wondering if he was planning to use his special abilities. Just a simple locator charm, Harry assured both of them, though it wasn't entirely accurate. What he planned was a hybrid technique, using the structure of the wizarding locator charm but channeling it through the more intuitive approach Wanda had taught him. Could you really? The boy asked hopefully. I'm Neville, by the way. Neville Longbottom. Harry Potter, Harry replied, expecting the usual reaction to his name. Neville's eyes widened, but his missing pet took precedence over celebrity. You know how to find lost toads? We haven't even started classes yet. I had some pre-Hogwarts training, Harry explained vaguely. Let me try something. He closed his eyes, focusing on his intent, locate a toad named Trevor belonging to Neville Longbottom. Drawing on his wizarding magic, he shaped it with the precision Wanda had taught him, careful not to allow chaos energy to bleed through. When he opened his eyes, a faint golden thread was visible to him, though probably not to the others, leading out of the compartment and down the corridor. This way, he said confidently, following the magical trace. The thread led them several compartments down and then, unexpectedly, up toward the luggage rack where, sure enough, Trevor the toad was nestled between two bags. Trevor! Neville exclaimed with relief as Harry retrieved the amphibian. How did you know he'd be up there? Harry shrugged. Just a hunch, he said, not ready to explain his tracking magic to someone he'd just met. That was brilliant, Neville said gratefully. Would you mind if I joined you? The boys I was sitting with were a bit. Of course, Hermione said immediately. We have plenty of room. As they returned to their compartment, Harry felt a small glow of satisfaction. His first use of magic on the journey had been controlled, helpful, and discreet, exactly as Wanda had taught him. Perhaps this transition wouldn't be as difficult as he'd feared. The journey continued pleasantly as Neville turned out to be knowledgeable about magical plants and eagerly discussed herbology with Hermione. Harry was content to listen, occasionally contributing when the conversation turned to subjects he'd studied with Remus or Wanda. Around midday, a smiling witch with a food trolley stopped by their compartment. Anything from the trolley, dears? Harry, who had packed a sandwich but was curious about wizarding sweets, bought a selection to share. Neville and Hermione introduced him to chocolate frogs, Bertie Bott's every flavor beans, and other magical treats he'd only read about in books. You've really never had these before? Neville asked, surprised. I thought everyone grew up with chocolate frogs. I grew up mostly in America, Harry explained, examining the Dumbledore card from his chocolate frog. The sweets there are different. This led to questions about his unusual upbringing, which Harry answered carefully, sharing only that he'd been raised by a guardian named Wanda after leaving his Muggle relatives. He mentioned nothing about chaos magic or reality manipulation, focusing instead on the standard wizarding education Remus had provided. As afternoon faded toward evening, the compartment door slid open again, this time revealing a pale boy with platinum blonde hair, flanked by two larger boys with distinctly unwelcoming expressions. "Is it true?" the pale boy demanded without preamble. "They're saying all down the train that Harry Potter's in this compartment." "Yes," Harry replied simply, studying the newcomer with interest. "This is Crabbe and Goyle," the boy said casually, indicating his companions. "And I'm Malfoy, Draco Malfoy." Beside Harry, Hermione straightened slightly, her expression becoming guarded. Neville actually shrank back in his seat. "I've heard of your family," Harry said neutrally, recalling Remus's mentions of the Malfoys as prominent pureblood supremacists. Draco's eyes narrowed slightly. "You'll soon find that some wizarding families are better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort." His gaze flicked dismissively over Hermione and Neville. "I can help you there." He extended his hand, clearly expecting Harry to take it. Harry considered the gesture and its implications carefully before responding. "I think I can decide the right sort for myself, thanks," he said politely but firmly, not taking the offered hand. "But I appreciate the introduction." Draco's pale face flushed pink. "I'd be careful if I were you, Potter," he said, his tone hardening. "Unless you're a bit politer, you'll go the same way as your parents." They didn't know what was good for them either. Harry felt a surge of anger, and with it, a dangerous flicker of crimson energy at his fingertips. Quickly, he clasped his hands together, forcing the chaos magic back down. "I think you should leave," he said, his voice deliberately calm despite the storm building inside. "Oh, you do you?" Malfoy sneered. "And what if we don't feel like leaving?" "Then you'll discover there are consequences," Harry replied, allowing just enough steel into his voice to make Malfoy hesitate. Something in Harry's controlled intensity must have registered with Draco, who took a small step back despite himself. "We'll go for now," he said, attempting to save face. "But remember what I said, Potter. Choose your company carefully." After they departed, Hermione released a breath she'd been holding. "That was intense. I've read about the Malfoy family. They're one of the Sacred 28, the supposedly pure-blood wizard families. His father has considerable influence at the Ministry. Gran says the Malfoys were right in you-know-who's inner circle," Neville added quietly. "Claimed they were bewitched afterward, but she doesn't believe it." Harry nodded, still working to calm the chaos energy that had surged with his anger. This was exactly the kind of situation Wanda had warned him about, provocations that could trigger emotional magic. "You controlled it well," Hermione murmured, too softly for Neville to hear. She had been briefed about Harry's unique magical situation during their family's interactions, though not the full extent of his abilities. "Almost didn't," Harry admitted quietly. "When he mentioned my parents." Hermione squeezed his hand sympathetically. "But you did. That's what matters." As the sky outside darkened, a voice echoed through the train, "We will be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes' time. Please leave your luggage on the train, it will be taken to the school separately." Excitement and nervousness rippled through the compartment as they changed into their school robes. Harry took a moment to center himself, using the meditation technique Wong had taught him years ago. Whatever challenges lay ahead at Hogwarts, he was as prepared as he could be. The train slowed and finally stopped. As they stepped onto the small, dark platform at Hogsmeade Station, a booming voice called out, "Fur's years. Fur's years over here." A gigantic man with a wild beard was holding a lamp, towering over the sea of students. "Come on, follow me, any more Fur's years? Mind your step, now." "That must be Hagrid," Harry said to Hermione, recognizing the gamekeeper from Remus's descriptions. They followed Hagrid down a steep, narrow path that opened suddenly onto the edge of a great black lake. Perched atop a mountain on the other side, its windows sparkling in the starry sky, was a vast castle with many turrets and towers. "No more and 4 to a boat," Hagrid called, pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting in the water by the shore. Harry, Hermione, and Neville were joined in their boat by a red-haired boy who introduced himself as Ron Weasley. As the boats glided across the lake of their own accord, Harry stared up at the castle, feeling its ancient magic calling to his own. It was more than just a building, it was a magical entity in its own right, alive with centuries of spells and enchantments. "It's incredible," he whispered, and beside him, Hermione nodded in silent agreement. When they reached the other side, Hagrid led them up a flight of stone steps to a huge oak door, where he knocked 3 times. The door swung open immediately to reveal Professor McGonagall, looking just as stern as she had during their shopping trip. "The Furs years, Professor McGonagall," Hagrid announced. "Thank you, Hagrid. I will take them from here." She led them into an entrance hall so vast Harry thought you could have fit the entire farmhouse inside it. They followed her across the flagged stone floor, the drone of hundreds of voices coming from a doorway to the right, the rest of the school already gathered. Instead of entering there, however, McGonagall showed them into a small, empty chamber off the hall. "Welcome to Hogwarts," she said. "The start of term banquet will begin shortly, but before you take your seats in the Great Hall, you will be sorted into your houses." She explained the house system and the importance of earning points, information Harry already knew from his studies with Remus. Still, the imminent reality of the sorting made his stomach flutter with anticipation. "The sorting ceremony will take place in a few minutes in front of the rest of the school," McGonagall concluded. "I suggest you all smarten yourselves up as much as you can while you are waiting." Her eyes lingered momentarily on Harry, and he thought he detected the slightest nod of encouragement before she left the chamber. Nervous speculation broke out among the first years about how exactly they would be sorted. Ron Weasley was convinced they would have to perform some sort of test, while others suggested increasingly outlandish trials. "It's just the sorting hat," Harry told Ron quietly. "It looks into your mind and determines which house suits you best." Ron looked relieved. "Are you sure? My brother Fred said it was some sort of painful test." "Quite sure," Harry confirmed with a smile. "Though I suppose the hat looking into your mind could be considered a test of character." Before Ron could respond, something happened that made several people around them scream. About 20 ghosts had just streamed through the back wall, pearly white and slightly transparent, deep in conversation among themselves. "New students," exclaimed a ghost wearing a ruff and tights when he noticed them. "About to be sorted, I suppose." A few people nodded mutely. "Hope to see you in Hufflepuff," the ghost said. "My old house, you know." "Move along now," came McGonagall's sharp voice as she returned. "The sorting ceremony is about to start." The ghosts floated away through the opposite wall, and McGonagall instructed the first years to form a line and follow her. They walked through a pair of double doors into the Great Hall, and Harry caught his breath at the magical splendor before him. Thousands of candles floated in midair above 4 long tables where the rest of the students were sitting. At the top of the hall was another long table where the teachers sat. Professor McGonagall led the first years up there, so that they came to a halt in a line facing the other students, with the teachers behind them. The ceiling above was velvety black, dotted with stars. Harry heard Hermione whisper, "It's bewitched to look like the sky outside. I read about it in Hogwarts, a history." Professor McGonagall silently placed a 4-legged stool in front of the first years. On top of the stool, she put a pointed wizard's hat, patched, frayed, and extremely dirty. For a few seconds, there was complete silence. Then a rip near the brim opened wide like a mouth, and the hat began to sing. The song explained the qualities of each house: brave Gryffindor, wise Ravenclaw, loyal Hufflepuff, and cunning Slytherin. When it finished, the whole hall burst into applause. Professor McGonagall stepped forward holding a long roll of parchment. When I call your name, you will put on the hat and sit on the stool to be sorted, she said. Abbott, Hannah. A pink-faced girl with blonde pigtails stumbled out of line, put on the hat, and sat down. After a moment's pause, Hufflepuff, shouted the hat. The table on the right cheered as Hannah went to sit with them. Bones, Susan. Hufflepuff, shouted the hat again. The sorting continued through the alphabet. Granger, Hermione. Hermione almost ran to the stool and jammed the hat eagerly on her head. Harry held his breath, hoping they might end up in the same house. Gryffindor, shouted the hat after nearly a minute. Hermione beamed as she made her way to the Gryffindor table, glancing back at Harry with an encouraging smile. When Neville was called, the hat took a long time to decide before finally declaring Gryffindor. Neville ran off still wearing the hat and had to jog back amid gales of laughter to give it to McDougal, Morag. Malfoy swaggered forward when his name was called and got his wish at once. The hat had barely touched his head when it screamed Slytherin. As Perks, Sally Ann, was sorted, Harry became acutely aware of the anticipation building in the hall. Everyone knew his name was coming. Potter, Harry. As Harry stepped forward, whispers broke out across the hall. Potter, did she say? The Harry Potter? Where's he been all these years? The last thing Harry saw before the hat dropped over his eyes was the hall full of people craning to get a good look at him. Then he was looking at the black inside of the hat, waiting. Said a small voice in his ear. Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and what's this? Oh, fascinating. A dual magical core, chaos magic intertwined with wizardry. I haven't seen anything like this in 1,000 years. Harry gripped the edges of the stool, trying not to project any specific preference. You could be great in any house, you know, the hat continued. Slytherin could help you on the path to greatness, with your particular gifts. Ravenclaw would nurture that extraordinary mind. Hufflepuff would ground your more chaotic tendencies, and Gryffindor would foster that remarkable courage I see. Harry thought of Hermione already in Gryffindor, of his parents who had been Gryffindors too, of Wanda who had taught him that courage wasn't about fearlessness but about facing fears. Ah, I see your thoughts turning, the hat murmured. Well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor. Harry heard the hat shout the last word to the whole hall. He took off the hat and walked shakily toward the Gryffindor table, where he was greeted with the loudest cheer yet. Percy Weasley the prefect shook his hand vigorously, while the Weasley twins yelled, "We got Potter! We got Potter!" He sat down opposite a ghost in a ruff who patted his arm, giving Harry the sudden, horrible sensation of being plunged into ice water. From this new vantage point, he could properly see the high table. At the center, in a large gold chair, sat Albus Dumbledore, exactly as Harry remembered him from his occasional visits to the farmhouse. Dumbledore caught his eye and gave a small nod of acknowledgement. Harry spotted other familiar faces, Professor McGonagall, who was now calling Thomas, Dean, to the sorting hat, Hagrid, who gave him a thumbs up when their eyes met, and a greasy-haired, hook-nosed teacher who was staring at Harry with an expression of such intense dislike that Harry was taken aback. "Who's that teacher talking to Professor Quirrell?" he asked Percy, indicating the hook-nosed man. "That's Professor Snape, head of Slytherin House," Percy replied. "Teaches potions, but everyone knows he's after Quirrell's job. Knows an awful lot about the dark arts, Snape." Harry studied Snape more carefully, recalling Remus's warnings about the potions master's history with his father. As if sensing his scrutiny, Snape's black eyes locked with Harry's, and a sharp, hot pain shot across the scar on Harry's forehead. Ouch! Harry clapped a hand to his head. "What is it?" asked Hermione, who had saved him a seat beside her. "Nothing," Harry said quickly, rubbing his scar. The pain had gone as quickly as it had come. He made a mental note to mention it in his letter to Wanda. Any unusual magical phenomenon involving his scar was something they monitored carefully. The sorting finished with Zabini, Blaze, becoming a Slytherin. Professor McGonagall rolled up her scroll and took the sorting hat away as Dumbledore got to his feet. "Welcome," he said, beaming at the students. "Welcome to a new year at Hogwarts. Before we begin our banquet, I would like to say a few words, nitwit. Blubber. Oddment. Tweak. Thank you." He sat back down to great applause. Harry laughed along with the others, appreciating Dumbledore's eccentric humor after years of occasional visits from the headmaster. "Is he, a bit mad?" Ron Weasley asked Percy uncertainly. "Mad? He's a genius," Percy replied. "Best wizard in the world. But yes, he is a bit mad." "Potatoes, Harry." Harry's eyes widened as he realized the dishes in front of them were now piled with food, more food than he'd ever seen at once, even during holiday feasts at the farmhouse. He loaded his plate, suddenly realizing how hungry he was after the long journey. As they ate, conversation flowed around them, backgrounds, families, what they were most looking forward to learning. Harry participated cautiously, sticking to the agreed-upon narrative about his upbringing, raised by a guardian named Wanda in America after leaving his relatives, tutored in magic by Remus Lupin, only recently returned to Britain. He mentioned nothing about chaos magic, reality manipulation, or Doctor Strange. "So why weren't you at Hogwarts before now?" asked Seamus Finnegan. "I mean, you're British, right? Why go to America?" "My guardian had worked there," Harry replied with the practiced half-truth. "Professor Dumbledore arranged for me to have private tutoring until I was old enough for Hogwarts." This seemed to satisfy most of his housemates, though he noticed Hermione giving him an approving nod for his careful navigation of the questions. After dessert, Dumbledore got to his feet again, and the hall fell silent. He welcomed them officially, gave a few start-of-term notices about forbidden areas and banned items, and then led them in singing the school song, a chaotic performance that made Harry smile with its unrestrained silliness. Finally, it was time for bed. The Gryffindor first years followed Percy through the crowds, out of the Great Hall, up the marble staircase, and through a dizzying series of corridors and hidden doorways. Harry found himself automatically mapping the routes in his mind, a skill he'd developed during excursions with Strange through various mystical dimensions. They stopped suddenly in front of a portrait of a very fat woman in a pink silk dress. "Password?" she asked. "Caput Draconis," said Percy, and the portrait swung forward to reveal a round hole in the wall. They all scrambled through it and found themselves in the Gryffindor common room, a cozy, round room full of squashy armchairs. Percy directed the girls through one door to their dormitory and the boys through another. At the top of a spiral staircase, they found their beds at last, 5 four-posters hung with deep red, velvet curtains. Their trunks had already been brought up. Too tired to talk much, they pulled on their pajamas and fell into bed. Harry was exhausted, but before sleep claimed him, he reached for the quill, ink, and parchment he'd set on his bedside table. By wand light, he composed a brief note to Wanda. "Dear Wanda, I made it to Hogwarts. I've been sorted into Gryffindor, like my parents. Hermione too. The castle is even more amazing than the books described, you can feel the magic everywhere. Something strange happened at the feast. My scar hurt when I looked at one of the teachers, Professor Snape. It was brief but intense. Probably nothing to worry about, but I wanted to let you know. The dorms are comfortable, and everyone seems nice so far. I've been careful about discussing my background, stuck to our agreed story. I hope you're settling in at Hogsmeade all right. I'm already looking forward to seeing you on the first Hogsmeade weekend, but I promise not to be a bother before then. Classes start tomorrow. I'll write again soon with more details. Miss you, Harry." He folded the letter and set it aside to give to Hedwig in the morning. As he drifted off to sleep, his last thought was that despite all his preparation and anticipation, nothing could have truly prepared him for the wonder of Hogwarts itself, a place where, for perhaps the first time, his magical abilities didn't make him an outsider but connected him to a 1,000-year tradition of wizardry. The first week at Hogwarts was a whirlwind of new experiences. Finding classrooms in the vast, ever-changing castle proved challenging even for Harry, who had studied the layout beforehand. Staircases moved, doors pretended to be walls, and suits of armor sometimes pointed students in the wrong direction for amusement. Classes themselves varied tremendously. Professor Flitwick, the tiny charms teacher, squeaked in excitement and toppled off his stack of books when he read Harry's name during the first roll call. Professor McGonagall, as expected, was strict and clever, transforming her desk into a pig and back to impress them before setting them to turning matches into needles. Herbology with Professor Sprout involved fascinating magical plants in the greenhouses behind the castle. History of magic was indeed as boring as Remus had warned, taught by a ghost who droned on about goblin rebellions while most students dozed. Defense against the dark arts was disappointing. Professor Quirrell seemed afraid of his own shadow, his classroom reeking of garlic that he claimed warded off a vampire he'd encountered in Romania. On Friday morning, Harry received 2 letters at breakfast, one from Remus congratulating him on his sorting, and another from Wanda. "Dear Harry, I'm so proud of you, little one, though I suppose you're not so little anymore. Gryffindor suits you perfectly. Courage has always been your defining trait, even as a 5-year-old brave enough to take my hand in that cupboard. The Hogsmeade cottage is lovely, just the right size, with a garden out back and a clear view of Hogwarts in the distance. Strange visited yesterday to help reinforce the protective enchantments. He sends his regards and some pretentious advice about maintaining magical equilibrium in high-saturation environments, which I think means, be careful with your chaos magic around all that wizarding energy. The scar pain concerns me. Has it happened again? Any dreams or unusual sensations? Document everything, as we've practiced. If it continues, I want you to tell Dumbledore directly. He understands the significance of that connection better than anyone. I'm so glad you and Hermione are together. Having a friend who knows and accepts you completely is precious. I know you'll be careful about revealing your full abilities to others, but remember that true friendships eventually require honesty. Trust your instincts about whom to trust. I've arranged to meet with Dumbledore next week to discuss your special curriculum. The regular classes are important, but we must ensure your unique abilities are properly developed as well. I miss you too, but I'm happy imagining you exploring the castle, making friends, and finally experiencing the world your parents loved so much. All my love, Wanda. Harry folded the letter with a smile, tucking it into his robes. Good news? Hermione asked from beside him. Wanda's settled in at Hogsmeade, he replied. Sounds like she's already planning my extra lessons with Dumbledore. That reminds me, Ron said through a mouthful of toast, you never explained why you need special lessons. Are you behind because of studying in America? Harry hesitated. He'd become fast friends with Ron during the first week, appreciating the redhead's straightforward nature and humor. But he wasn't ready to reveal his unique magical situation to someone new just yet. Some aspects of my magic work differently, he said vaguely. Professor Dumbledore wants to make sure I adjust properly. Ron seemed satisfied with this explanation, quickly moving on to their class schedule. Double potions with the Slytherins today, he groaned. Snape's head of Slytherin house. They say he always favors them. Wish McGonagall favored us, said Seamus Finnegan. The Gryffindor head of house had given them a huge pile of homework the day before. Harry remained quiet, recalling Remus's warnings about Snape's potential animosity. He'd been preparing himself mentally for this confrontation all week. As they finished breakfast, the morning mail arrived. Harry noticed Neville receiving a small package from his grandmother. The round-faced boy opened it excitedly, showing them a glass ball the size of a large marble filled with white smoke. It's a remembrall, he explained. Gran knows I forget things. This tells you if there's something you've forgotten to do. Look, if you hold it tight like this and the smoke turns red, oh. His face fell as the smoke inside the remembrall suddenly glowed scarlet. You've forgotten something. Neville was trying to remember what he'd forgotten when Draco Malfoy, passing the Gryffindor table, snatched the remembrall from his hand. Harry and Ron jumped to their feet immediately. They were half hoping for a reason to fight Malfoy, but Professor McGonagall, who could spot trouble quicker than any teacher in the school, was there in a flash. "What's going on?" "Malfoy's got my remembrall, Professor." Scowling, Malfoy quickly dropped the remembrall back on the table. "Just looking," he said, and he sloped away with Crabbe and Goyle behind him. As they headed down to the dungeons for potions after breakfast, Harry felt a growing sense of unease. The classroom itself was unwelcoming, colder than the rest of the castle, with pickled animals floating in glass jars around the walls. Snape, like Flitwick, started the class by taking the roll call, and like Flitwick, he paused at Harry's name. "Ah, yes," he said softly, "Harry Potter. Our new celebrity." Draco Malfoy and his friends Crabbe and Goyle sniggered behind their hands. Snape finished calling the names and looked up at the class, his eyes cold and empty. "You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making," he began in barely more than a whisper, but they caught every word. "As there is little foolish wand-waving here, many of you will hardly believe this is magic. I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, and snaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stopper death, if you aren't as big a bunch of dunderheads as I usually have to teach." More silence followed this little speech. Harry exchanged looks with Ron, while Hermione was on the edge of her seat, looking desperate to prove she wasn't a dunderhead. "Potter," said Snape suddenly. "What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Harry felt a surge of gratitude for Remus's thorough preparation. "The draught of living death, sir," he answered calmly. "It's a sleeping potion so powerful it mimics death." Snape's eyes narrowed slightly, clearly surprised by the correct answer. "Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar?" "In the stomach of a goat, sir," Harry replied. "It's a stone that will protect you from most poisons." Snape's lips curled into a sneer. "Think you're clever, do you, Potter? What is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane?" Harry met Snape's gaze steadily. "They're the same plant, sir, also known as aconite." A flash of something, surprise, perhaps, or annoyance at not catching Harry out, crossed Snape's face before his expression hardened again. "Correct," he said coldly. "For your information, these are topics typically covered in first-year potions, which apparently Potter has memorized in advance." He surveyed the class. "Well, why aren't you all copying that down?" There was a sudden rummaging for quills and parchment. Over the noise, Snape added, "And a point from Gryffindor for your cheek, Potter." Harry bit back a retort, determined not to give Snape any legitimate reason to penalize him further. Things didn't improve for the Gryffindors as the potions lesson continued. Snape put them all into pairs and set them to mixing a simple potion to cure boils. He swept around in his long black cloak, watching them weigh dried nettles and crush snake fangs, criticizing almost everyone except Malfoy, whom he seemed to like. Despite the tense atmosphere, Harry found himself enjoying the actual potion-making. There was something satisfying about the precise measurements and careful preparation, not unlike the structured aspects of chaos magic that Wanda had taught him. He and Ron had just finished adding porcupine quills to their cauldron when clouds of acid green smoke and a loud hissing filled the dungeon. Neville had somehow managed to melt Seamus's cauldron into a twisted blob, and their potion was seeping across the stone floor, burning holes in people's shoes. Within seconds, the whole class was standing on their stools while Neville, who had been drenched in the potion when the cauldron collapsed, moaned in pain as angry red boils sprang up all over his arms and legs. "Idiot boy," snarled Snape, clearing the spilled potion away with one wave of his wand. "I suppose you added the porcupine quills before taking the cauldron off the fire?" Neville whimpered as boils started to pop up all over his nose. "Take him up to the hospital wing," Snape spat at Seamus. Then he rounded on Harry and Ron, who had been working next to Neville. "You, Potter, why didn't you tell him not to add the quills? Thought he'd make you look good if he got it wrong, did you? That's another point you've lost for Gryffindor." This was so unfair that Harry opened his mouth to argue, but Ron kicked him behind their cauldron. "Don't push it," he muttered. "I've heard Snape can turn very nasty." As they climbed the steps out of the dungeon an hour later, Harry's mind was racing and his spirits were low. 2 points from Gryffindor in his first week, and for what? Knowing the answers and not being psychic about Neville's mistake. "Cheer up," said Ron. "Snape's always taking points off Fred and George. Can I come and meet Hagrid with you?" Harry had arranged to have tea with Hagrid that afternoon, having received an invitation by Owl at breakfast. Sure, he agreed, grateful for the distraction. At 5 to 3, they left the castle and made their way across the grounds to Hagrid's small wooden house on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. When Harry knocked, they heard a frantic scrabbling from inside and several booming barks. Then Hagrid's voice rang out, saying, "Back, Fong, back." Hagrid's big, hairy face appeared in the crack as he pulled the door open. "Hang on," he said. "Back, Fong." He let them in, struggling to keep a hold on the collar of an enormous black boarhound. The hut was a single room with hams and pheasants hanging from the ceiling, a copper kettle boiling on the open fire, and a massive bed with a patchwork quilt in the corner. "Make yourselves at home," said Hagrid, releasing Fong, who bounded straight at Ron and started licking his ears. "This is Ron," Harry told Hagrid, who was pouring boiling water into a large teapot and putting rock cakes onto a plate. "Another Weasley, said Hagrid, glancing at Ron's freckles. "I spent half me life chasin' your twin brothers away from the forest." The rock cakes were shapeless lumps with raisins that almost broke their teeth, but Harry and Ron pretended to be enjoying them as they told Hagrid all about their first lessons. Fong rested his head on Harry's knee and drooled all over his robes. Harry and Ron were delighted to hear Hagrid call Filch, the cantankerous caretaker, that old git. "And as fair that cat, Mrs. Norris, I'd like ter introduce her to Fong sometime. Dia know, every time I go up to the school, she follows me everywhere. Can't get rid of her, Filch puts her up to it." Harry told Hagrid about Snape's lesson. Hagrid, like Ron, told Harry not to worry about it, that Snape liked hardly any of the students. "But he seemed to really hate me." "Rubbish," said Hagrid. "Why should he?" Yet Harry couldn't help noticing that Hagrid didn't quite meet his eyes when he said that. "How's your guardian settlin' in at Hogsmeade?" Hagrid asked, clearly changing the subject. "Professor Dumbledore mentioned she'd taken one of the cottages." "She likes it," Harry replied. "Says she can see Hogwarts from her garden." "Yeah, must be one of the few students with family nearby," Hagrid observed. "Special arrangement, that." "Wanda's not exactly conventional," Harry said with a small smile. "Professor Dumbledore understands our situation." "Good man, Dumbledore," Hagrid said firmly. "Always knows what's best." As Harry and Ron walked back to the castle for dinner, Harry's thoughts returned to Snape's odd behavior and Hagrid's evasiveness. There was clearly history there beyond what Remus had shared. The first weekend passed quietly, with Harry and his fellow Gryffindors exploring the castle and grounds. On Sunday evening, Hermione cornered Harry in the common room while most others were at dinner. "I've been thinking," she began without preamble, "about your special magic." Harry glanced around to ensure they weren't overheard. "What about it?" "Well, you haven't had a chance to practice since we arrived, have you?" "The chaos aspects, I mean." Harry shook his head. "Wanda and I agreed I should focus on standard wizarding techniques for now, at least in public. I've been doing some meditation exercises before bed, but that's it." Hermione nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense for classes, but what about practicing in private? You don't want those skills to atrophy just when you might need them most." "What are you suggesting?" "We need a secure place where you can practice safely," she said decisively. "Somewhere no one will stumble upon us accidentally." Harry considered this. She was right, maintaining his unique abilities would require regular practice, just as Wanda had always emphasized. "Any ideas where?" "Not yet," Hermione admitted. But I'll research it. There must be unused classrooms or secret areas in a castle this size. We could ask the twins, Harry suggested, referring to Ron's brothers Fred and George, notorious for their knowledge of Hogwarts' hidden places. Though we'd need a good cover story. Hermione agreed, and they made plans to begin their search discreetly. Harry felt a surge of gratitude for his friend's thoughtfulness. She understood better than most the importance of maintaining balance between his different magical aspects. The following week brought new challenges as flying lessons were announced, Gryffindors and Slytherins together on Thursday afternoon. While many of his classmates were either excited or nervous, Harry felt conflicted. He had limited experience with broomsticks during his education with Remus, who hadn't been particularly fond of flying himself. When Thursday arrived, it was a clear, breezy day, perfect for flying. The Gryffindors hurried down the front steps onto the grounds for their first lesson. The Slytherins were already there, as were 20 broomsticks lying in neat lines on the ground. Their teacher, Madame Hooch, arrived shortly. She had short, gray hair and yellow eyes like a hawk. "Well, what are you all waiting for?" she barked. "Everyone stand by a broomstick. Come on, hurry up." Harry glanced down at his broom. It was old, with twigs sticking out at odd angles. "Stick out your right hand over your broom," called Madame Hooch at the front, "and say, 'Up.'" "Up," everyone shouted. Harry's broom jumped into his hand at once, but it was one of the few that did. Hermione's had simply rolled over on the ground, and Neville's hadn't moved at all. Madame Hooch then showed them how to mount their brooms without sliding off the end, and walked up and down the rows correcting their grips. Harry and Ron were delighted when she told Malfoy he'd been doing it wrong for years. "Now, when I blow my whistle, you kick off from the ground, hard," said Madame Hooch. "Keep your broom steady, rise a few feet, and then come straight back down by leaning forward slightly. On my whistle, 3, 2, but Neville, nervous and jumpy and frightened of being left on the ground, pushed off hard before the whistle had touched Madame Hooch's lips. "Come back, boy," she shouted, but Neville was rising straight up like a cork shot out of a bottle, 12 feet, 20 feet. Harry saw his scared white face look down at the ground falling away, saw him gasp, slip sideways off the broom and, wham, a thud and a nasty crack and Neville lay face down on the grass in a heap. His broomstick was still rising higher and higher, and started to drift lazily toward the forbidden forest and out of sight. "Madam, something went wrong with this response, please try again. Trace ID, E69188B5FB0 go straight to the next chapter now." The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.